Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is October the 5th of 2022. It is no longer September, which means we don't have to talk about the Sadistic September series. That's how it works. We made it out. We don't have to talk about it. Okay, let's talk about other stuff.
I talked to the Weekly Manga Recap lawyer, and they did say technically we are off the hook. Acts of God do save us from that clause. So because of Hurricane whatever it was, Jigglypuff,
Who can keep track?
Hurricane Jigglypuff, we don't have to talk about GetBackers.
Yeah, so I hope everyone's good with that. So we'll get the Spookmaster General in here.
You know what?
Or you know what? We don't have to do that either. You know what? We don't have to do anything I don't feel like doing. None of it. None of it.
Nick's just like, I just want chocolate. Well, you don't eat chocolate. I just want dessert. I don't fuck all these vegetables. They can eat they can eat the worst part of my ass.
Yeah. And as we all know, when Nick wants something to happen on Weekly Manga Recap, it always goes his way.
I would say, I mean,
every contest we have for a veto, I get that.
And if you don't, it ends up being a series you approve of. I guess
it worked out that way.
I was gonna say you didn't have that big an issue with PPPPP.
It worked out okay. Yeah.
I would say, look, we've already done the work in reading GetBackers. Why not discuss it? You know.
Because it's so much easier if I can flush that out of my brain now instead of having to remember for a discussion.
That's true, but think about the catharsis that will come.
There might be a superpower that someone has that does that in this series.
There probably is. You know, I feel like we should just get into it. We have so many series to talk about this week, but here's the thing. Sadistic September trumps all of that. There's no One Piece this week. But if there was if we reached the end of the week and there was 3 minutes left, I'd be like, I hope One Piece. Like if you gave me the option, like, look, you could do a full One Piece recap, or you could talk about Sadistic September. I'd be like, I will strangle One Piece in a river to ensure that time gets to go to the Sadistic September recommendation.
Are we sure that we read GetBackers though, Quinn, or were we just having a bad dream?
Ooh, Nick. I think it's time to get back our review of GetBackers.
Yeah. GetBackers is the name of the series that we read for Sadistic September. And honestly, it's at a point now where I don't know, because it's going to be my turn next year. I don't know what the hell we're going to read. I don't know what there is left to plumb from the days when I would just stay up until 2 p.m. the next day reading shitty, mediocre manga. That we can go back to. But in this case, GetBackers, it's a series that ran for an insanely long time. 1999 until 2007, written by Yuya Aoki, illustrated by Rando Ayamine. And it was published in North America for a time by Tokyo Pop, which is out of business, so you cannot buy this series in English legally anymore.
I think I still own some of the volumes for this. Technically,
it's out of print. You can get it. You can get it secondhand. I should say, but everything is out of print because Tokyo Pop. The series is about a duo of protagonists named Bon and Genji. Is it Ginji? Yeah. Right. Who are retrieval specialists. If you have lost something or something has been stolen from you, then they will get back it for
Wait,
you.
Is that why they're called that?
The other reason they're called that is because Bond starts with B and Genji starts with G. So GB, get back.
Yeah. Hey, top tier stuff if you got it, you know?
So, Bond wears stupid sunglasses. They're too small. Don't die at me. They're too small to be cool.
Okay.
They're tiny sunglasses. I hate them. I hate them every time that he shows up. And Genji has blonde hair, and he shoots sparky sparks. He's an electricity dude. Actually, for all the weird bullshit that Bond does, the fact that you could just sum up Genji with "he shocks people," like, it seems like way too simple an explanation.
Yeah, there's a real dichotomy between them. Like, one has like 3 different power sets, the other guy zaps people, and you're like, all right, well, fair enough.
Bond's powers
no, we can't talk about that. We had to save that until later, because I have like an entire bit about how fucking stupid Bond's power set is.
So Genji and Bond have superpowers of varying degrees, and they will take on essentially any task to get back something for you. And initially, they seem like just gigantic fucking losers who can't catch a break, because literally like the first couple chapters are about them like begging a kid to like steal his video game back for him so that they can get enough money to buy like one soda so they don't starve on the street.
Yes.
And then like the very next story, they're doing car chases and stuff. They're immediately dealing in like art thefts and stuff like that. And then you gradually learn that, oh no, wait, Genji was in this like big gang that ran this one city, and Bond was hopping around Europe, and his this reputation is he killed someone who was part of his former gang that was kind of like the GetBackers before. And it's like, how are these guys ever in a position where they were just some losers on the street who had to deal with very, very, very low stakes stuff if they've done all of these things in their life and were these infamous figures? How did this happen? Because no explanation for why they're in that position other than they're just poor and suck is ever given.
Well, Nick, there's an interesting dichotomy in this series where at parts it is a dramatic story with a lot of, serious story beats. And then also it's a silly, wacky story. And when it's silly, wacky, like when it's serious, Genji and Bond are the most competent, accomplished, barely ever able to fail duo you ever see. When it's time to be a little serious, they're hilariously incompetent, and they'll be like holding like a Fabergé egg, and then they'll like drop it into a dog's butt or something like that. They're just like, whoa! And that's like the silly fun of it all. Like, you get a little bit of both. You get like them at their best and then them at their worst. The two of them together, that's the GetBackers trademark.
And very much, it's not a situation of "and never the twain shall meet." They jump back and forth between those two moods without warning all the goddamn time. Within the same scene, there will be a moment where they're like, "Hey, things are going great for us. Yeah, things are going well." And then someone will do like one thing that will slightly piss them off, and they'll be like, "Oh, do you want to fucking die?" And they just get really serious and just butcher them in an immediate.
Yeah, they'll like fall butt first into like a fucking criminal's compound, but then the bad guy will be like, "I like to do crime," and they're like, "Are you ready to have a bad dream, motherfucker?" And you're just like, all right, man, like, it really does. You're like, I guess it's a cartoon until shit gets serious, and then it's like a regular serious battle manga, and there's like, you almost need like the clapboard to come in, like, cut. All right, time to be serious. Let's go.
There are a couple of bits where you get like character profiles, as is typical in a lot of manga, and the character summaries for them were just like trying my patience when I would read them.
They don't make anyone look like they're in a better light. Like, every character description's like,
because they'll say stuff like, Bond is a happy-go-lucky guy who likes goofing around and grabbing girls' boobs. But also, he's a very smart guy with a lot of insane talents that people underestimate him with, and everyone likes him. You can't can't pair those things together. He's an incompetent asshole who sexually harasses women, and also everyone loves him.
Everyone does, everyone, hey, he's just so fun. Everyone loves to hang out with him, even when he just violates your personal space and your body. It's just wacky fun. It's just Bond. He's being silly. There's like sort of a rhythm to this series at the start of it, which is like they're given a mission. Hey, you guys have to get something back, usually by like sort of a somewhat sympathetic party or something like that. And they're like, all right, we're gonna get this back. And then there's always a complication. There's always some kind of twist. There's always some kind of like difficulty in doing it. It's not as simple as like, hey, pick up this box and bring it back here. There's always some extra level of just like, the box was actually a baby or something like that. Something like that. They'll run into a bad guy. Bond evil eyes them. That's how they kind of get away, and then they'll get back.
Every time. I fucking hate the evil eyes so much.
And then they'll get back. And that's how it runs for a while. And at that point, I would say it's at its most basic, and probably it's at a weird point where it's like, it's probably its most boring, and yet at the same time, it's at its best, I would almost say, because the series has an issue with getting really overwritten as it goes on. Like, the moment they go to the Infinity Fortress, which is the place that Ginji is from, the series becomes so complicated. There are so many, like groups and mysterious figures and mythos and lore being added, and you're just like, fuck, dude, remember when they had to get a violin back? And that was like the big thing.
The violin, the Stradivarius retrieval arc is probably the best the series ever is, because it is at the very least like, okay, a light adventure that has a twist in it that makes sense. There is, things are grounded enough, and there are characters involved in it that aren't them and also aren't insanely stupid.
Yes.
Like that arc introduces two characters like, okay, I at least get their deal. They may not be the best characters, but as far as the series is concerned, they're the best written ones, probably. But then as time goes by, as you were saying, the series likes to talk a lot while having nothing to say, essentially. There are all sorts of stuff that come up involving simulations and shit that explain certain things that didn't need explaining and don't explain other things that definitely need explaining. Like I said before, how were they ever in this position if all this other stuff has happened to them? Like, in that same Stradivarius arc, they infiltrate this Yakuza-run party so that they can get close enough to this girl's stolen Stradivarius violin and get it. But they're undercover as a classical musical group that's going to be performing for the party. And they're like, oh shit, okay. And so Bond starts playing the violin, and they're like, oh, thank God Bond had his superpower that lets him create illusions so that, people would think that he was a skilled violinist. And then he's like, I didn't need it for that. That was just me playing. And it's like, wait, you're a skilled classical violinist? Yep. Never mentioned again.
It's mentioned in enough that they're just like, he had spent a lot of time as a kid reading and practicing stuff and becoming super awesome at everything.
Just everything.
I want to talk about Bond really quickly here. So to explain, the evil eye is this power he has where he looks into somebody's eyes and he basically projects a vision onto them for 1 minute, and usually it's the bad guy, so it's a bad vision where the bad guy thinks they're winning, but then like, oh no, all the people I killed are coming back as zombies to kill me, or something like that. It's like, it's a nightmarish vision where it looks like the bad guys have won, but then inevitably they get beat. Or sometimes he uses on good people to let them see things that they couldn't otherwise experience, or things like that. There's a mix of things. It sounds like it's a broken ability, because once he uses it, he can just do whatever the fuck he wants. Like, and he exists in the real world and can do things. Like, he has used it to be like, all right, well, while you're under the evil eye, I'm going to take shit out of your pockets. Yeah, I'm just going to do that. So it's crazy. But they're like, all right, well, we're going to put a couple rules to it. First, like, he needs to have
limitations. It's okay now.
He needs to have eye contact. Like, okay, that's one of the first big rules. He can only use it once on a person per 24 hours. So once he's used on somebody, he can't use it again. Like, all right, well, that seems pretty good. And then 3, he can't use it more than 3 times in a day. And it's like, okay, cool. Like almost like a D&D campaign where you're like, I had to throw enough mobs at these guys that they had to burn their spell slots. Like I like that's the challenge it eventually becomes a series. Like there are strict limitations to how much bong it is. Also, his left or his right hand can crush anything it ever touches.
Also, he is an insanely skilled hand-to-hand combatant.
You know, like also his hand is like his right hand is superhumanly strong and will destroy anything it ever touches. You're like, well, hold on a moment there, Buster. It's really it's like the hot dog meme. Like, why does he get 2 powers?
It's completely unrelated to anything, and it's not like, oh well, so does Genji also, I don't know, get to like run super fast? No, he just shocks people.
There is like eventually a build up to like the lore and stuff, but it's all like later explanation as to why he does this stuff. It's ultimately still just like I gave him another power, which is the super awesome hand power.
It does definitely seem as if at a certain point while writing this, Yu Aoki was like, okay, well, this power is like super broken, so I'll put limitations on it. But I still want Bond to be one of the main characters of the story and get into fights and stuff. So also, one of his hands is just the jaws of life. And also, if he's stuck into the wall, he can just gather a bunch of strength into himself to just complete shatter the wall, and then he tears the dude's face off without using his evil eye. All right.
It's absurd. He's also just like so much of like he's a very obnoxious protagonist. He is probably, I guess, the main character of the series between him and Genji. They share that role a lot, but it seems like Bond takes a little bit more of the spotlight just because he's involved in a lot of stuff. But Bond himself has, like, as you said before, it's like a clear divide in his character where it's like, on one hand, when he's goofy, he is so obnoxious. He is constantly like harassing women and being so annoying, creepy as well. Like some of the people he checks out are like underage. Also, one is his sister. We get to that much later, but that's very weird. And he's just like mean and shitty to everybody, like except for Genji. Like he's constantly bullying people and calling them shitty nicknames. But then when it's time to get serious, he's just like cool dude.
You would have a bad dream.
Yeah, he's just cool dude, awesome person, and he can do no wrong. And you're like, fuck, man, like you don't want it to, like, when you're experiencing one, you're like, oh, I wish we could go to the other one. And then you get to the other one and you're like, this thing sucks too. I hate this part too.
I have played RPGs with people who basically play Bond, and it's the worst experience to get the person who's a little shit, and then when it's time to get serious, they're like, and now I'm super badass and cool and unflappable against anything, and I have 8 superpowers. It's just so annoying. And to go a little bit more to the sexual harassment part of it, look, this is just kind of like par for the course for a certain genre and a certain period as well of shonen action stuff. However, I have to point this out whenever this happens. One of the ways that GetBackers establishes this character is a villainous piece of shit is by having them sexually harass or assault a woman. And it's like, oh, look at that disgusting piece of trash, groping that woman against her will, using his position of power over her in order to extract sexual favors from her. Then in the same chapter, Bond, while being goofy and wacky, will grope like the same woman. Like, You can't have it both ways. You can't say this makes you a bad person, but this makes him wacky and lovable. Fuck off.
For so much of the series, there are only really 2 extremely prominent female characters in the series, which is Heaven and Himiko. And Himiko spends like almost the entirety of the series when she's put into an action lead, like having her clothes torn off or being captured or just being nude for whatever reason. It's not quite as like egregious maybe, or maybe it's just not as flagrant as it was in like other series like Flame of Recca. But it really is like a very noticeable, like twice in one arc, she loses all of her clothes. And I just remember being like, how does this happen twice? Like you're like the 5th most important character in this arc. How did it happen like this?
Yeah.
And it's a deeply unfortunate thing because I was like, I feel like I could like this character a lot more if they just executed better. And Heaven is literally like just a gigantic pair of breasts that then a character design had to be attached to. But the character design is really, really bad. It's hilarious. I've sent several images into our Discord as I find them. Like anytime Heaven shows up, there's like a full page spread of her in her new outfit. And the author clearly drew the breasts and then was like, fuck, what do I do with the rest of this? And just kind of wings it because like...
all right, she's gotta be technically covered. Hang on, how do I do this?
Well, it's not even that. Like the proportions will be all off. Like her waist will be like 7 times longer than the rest of her body. Her eye will be kind of crooked. It's almost hilarious at times because then like those images will be used if you're reading the volume as like the in between shots, and you're just like, who is this for? This shot's bad. I don't know what to tell you.
But there's boobs in it. That's what people like to see. That's why I put it as, spotlighted because boobs.
Yes. Yeah. So she's very much a forgettable.
And she's.
Nope. Sorry. I think we got caught up now.
Yeah. Okay. Quinn, did you like any part of this series? You were the one who read this series beforehand. So
yeah, I read this series back in, it must have been like the mid 2000s. As I said, I owned a couple of the Tokyo Pop volumes of this, and I got to, I've mentioned this before. The reason why this series kind of came up is because I know I've mentioned before on the podcast, reading through the Infinity Fortress arc, and our main duo teams up with 3 other side characters who are kind of allies to them, and then one person who has deliberately like been an antagonist to them and has only ever been an antagonist. But it's like, we all have to work together on this mission. They enter into this fortress that's essentially like a dungeon. I'll talk about the Infinity Fortress more later because it's stupid. But it's a 6-person team who are going in to retrieve this item. And then like part of the way through, they just start talking about how there's a Judas in the group. There's a traitor to this group. This group is 6 characters. Someone within it is a Judas. And the most obvious answer would be, all right, well, Akane, Dr. Jackal, who is the antagonist to this group previously, who's a part of it, would be the villain because, or the Judas, because they're the evil person in the group. And it would be rote and kind of tired to like try to bury the lead that this was not like, if it was him as the Judas, why not just say it? Because you're suspecting him the whole time.
Especially because like the group is split up at these points. Yeah. So the group of 6 is in 3 groups of 2. And so Dr. Jekyll is with Genji, and he's like, I think that someone in our group must be a Judas. So he brings this up.
Yeah, it's brought up there, and then we continuously cut over to the villain of the arc who brings up that there's a Judas coming and all this sort of stuff, and it keeps getting referenced over and over again. And it's to this point where you're just like, all right, my guy, like, who could it be? Like, you can't do Dr. Jackal. If you're building it up this much, you can't have the answer be like, oh, it was the guy with the giant knife in his hand all the time. Like, you can't do a mystery like that. Like, you guys, like, that is clearly the person who's the red herring. The answer is somebody else. Because, like, the entire thing is like, hey, there's sort of like mysteries to this place, and like people become different, like, because most of the cast is from the Infinity Fortress, so like some people become different people when they're back here. There's a lot of trauma that's associated with this place, a lot of challenges. Who knows, maybe these people we thought were your friends, like they have a secret to them, and then like it's revealed and it's like it's Dr. Jackal. You're like, well, what the fuck was the point of all of this? Like, obviously it was that guy. If you're not going to do something interesting with that, don't build it up, because there was no satisfying reveal to any of that.
And don't have him in while he's alone with one other person say, by the way, I think someone's betraying us. Like, why would you raise that suspicion against yourself?
And I read to that point when I originally read the series, and I think a little bit further. I don't even think I truly finished the arc, and that was where I kind of stopped collecting the volumes just because I wasn't as interested in it anymore. And I knew, I was like, you know, I don't remember, because I remember some parts being cool. I remember like the fight between Jubei, and Kazuki being kind of a cool fight that they have. And I was like, maybe I'll appreciate the series more. And I will say this, do not like hide some of my feelings on this. I do think this is probably the least bad of any series we've read for Sadistic September, in that
I would probably agree with that.
I can appreciate some things the series tries to do. I will say, for as overwritten as I find it, I do appreciate that it tries to be like interestingly written, that does try to like tie together some themes and some concepts, and there is like a growing narrative throughout it. So I think it is very satisfying, and I think, yes, I read this series when I was 13, and I think another 13-year-old who just got into manga and had only those options available to them would find themselves interested in this. However, I think this is a series that, as you get older, loses a lot of its luster because it's just kind of goofy and not as deep as it wants to be, and not as cool as it's trying to be either. Like, eventually you just reach a point where you're like, yeah, I don't really like anyone in this series that much. Everyone's kind of an asshole.
I mean, I have to say, like, I led with all the negative stuff. One, because that's kind of like what people expect from 6 September. And two, because that's really the only memorable thing that I have, or the only actual pure real reaction I had to anything that I read. Because for the most of it, I did just kind of experience this sort of dull acceptance of things that were happening without really caring what was happening. And I think it might be down to just the amount of manga that I've read at this point, and the fact that I'm, older and more jaded than I would have been when the series was actually coming out. I do know that there were some people that I, hung out with around this time whose opinions I respected, who were like, "Oh, I really like GetBackers. It's an action series, but it's a bit different because it's not just pure battle. There's like this gimmick of there's kind of a heist sort of feeling associated with it sometimes. And in some of the missions that the GetBackers go on, there is that kind of feel. One of their early missions, for example, is it takes place across a car chase that they're having. So I don't have very strong negative feelings about this. This feels like something that I'll just really kind of forget more than anything else in a little while, because it's just another shonen adventure series with characters that aren't that great, and that's just kind of it as far as I feel. Also, there are weird things involving simulated reality.
Well, I want to talk about an arc. So I guess I should start with saying, with explaining the Infinity Fortress arc, because that's something that I guess has been like brewing in my mind. I guess there's like a young Quinn who's just like, you need to talk about this. So it's the first like significantly major arc in the series, in that it spans like 7 volumes. It's a long arc.
Yeah, it's longer than every other arc prior to it combined. So
yeah, so it's this very extensive thing, and it involves essentially the entire cast of the series of characters at this point. Ban and Genji, Shido shows up, Kazuki is a member we know, and then Himiko also shows up, plus Akane, Dr. Jackal, and then we also balloon the cast up by like 7 more characters through this, and most of whom stay significantly relevant throughout the rest of the story as well. Like, it's a big thing. So Infinity Fortress, like, hey, we have this hired job. We need to go retrieve the IL. We need to go get this. And they don't know what it is, but it's like, hey,
what's the IL? Yeah. What could it be? The IL. Does it stand for something? Could it be 49?
They're like, hey, we have to go back to Genji's home, this Infinity Fortress, which you don't really know much about until you get there. And then you're like, okay, it's like we just know Genji was a part of a gang. And you're like, all right. So the Infinity Fortress is like this big tower that has like slums around it. And you're like, sure. Not really though. Like, it seems like that
it's actually a labyrinth.
Yeah, it looks like that. Like, it looks like there's this poor impoverished area where like crimes have to rise up to protect the populace and like to survive. Like, it's an extremely rough area to live. But also it's like a long tower that goes up and has like a super awesome mega world at the very top. There's like essentially gods up there. They don't really know. They're like, the people at the top control everything, not just Infinity Fortress, perhaps the entire world. And there's like a calm belt-esque area in between. I think it's actually called the something belt. Like they're like, You can't, like, nobody from the bottom area can get to the top because there's so many strong fighters in the middle that you just can't even possibly get there. Also, it's magic. This is the most technologically advanced place, and there's electromagnetism that erupts throughout this that heals people quicker and kind of, like, works different with time. It's very different. They get finally... This is basically lost, too, by this point, by the way. Electromagnetism shows up and just causes weird issues. They finally get to, like, what the IL is, and the answer is, like, it's an implosion lens, which I don't know anything about nuclear arms, but apparently they're like, that is what allows, like, you need that to build a nuclear warhead. That is the weapon that is being built. And you spend so long getting to it. They're like, you have to fight the 4 heavenly king. I forget what the fuck they call themselves, but there's, like, a rival villain group they have to beat. And then they have to beat themselves. Like, they have to beat them, like, 3 times. Like, these motherfuckers keep showing up and fighting each other over and over and over again. And then Akane does his big betrayal, and he's like, I'm delivering plutonium to you, or uranium. I forget what element he actually brings, but he's like, I have brought this to you. That's why I'm the Judas. But now that my contract is done, I shall switch sides because I, Akane, only care about fighting. Akane sucks, by the way. He's not campy like Hisoka, and he's not intense like Kenpachi, so he's super fucking boring, and he shows up all the goddamn time. He sucks. They eventually have to, like, fight Makube, which I don't want to say this series because it has a ton of lore is a lot like Kingdom Hearts, because I think that's kind of a rote comparison. Not everything with a lot of lore is like Kingdom Hearts. They're different things. However, I will say Makubex is a character who was one person, became mysterious, and then just added an X to their name. So there is some comparison on that point. And then they eventually just make friends with Makubex. Like, Makubex was like, everything, there is no randomness in our world. Everything is controlled by the people at the top. And the only way I can get them to possibly respond to us is to threaten to nuke everything, to destroy everything. And that's what, like, the heart of the arc is. And it sounds like when you boil it down, this could be interesting. Like, when you really, like, cliff notes this story, you're like, all right, they go in expecting one thing. This is somebody who Genji once considered a friend, but they're not anymore. However, like, there's complicated feelings there, and there's a lot of, like, anger from the people who stayed behind versus those who left the Infinity Fortress. And it would be interesting to see these forces react, especially when, like, the villain doesn't want power. The villain wants freedom, wants answers, essentially. But it's so much dialogue and, like, overwritten nonsense and, like, flashing back and forth, and, like, we're gonna give you a nugget of an answer at a time, and there's an old man who's a computer hacker and he's important, and you have to cut back to him and his stupid grandkid over and over again. It's just very exhaustive.
And then it turns out that were they actually people, or how were they all just part of a simulated reality? Because
there's one other arc I want to talk about before we get to the end.
No. There are people within the Infinity Fortress that are just, like, programs.
Oh yeah.
So there's that. Yeah, you mentioned the dialogue, and I think that was a big thing for me, was that there would just be so many instances, and I think that there was the part of it that actually really drove it home for me was when they're in the Infinity Fortress and the group gets separated. Genji and Dr. Jackal had previously had a fight. Genji, like, defeated him because he would hide knives inside his body, and he used his electricity to magnetize them and tear them out of Dr. Jackal's body. So it's like, I beat you. But now there's that tension between them. Because Dr. Jackal's a horrible murder fight-loving dude, and Genji is like, oh, this guy probably has a grudge against me, and he might kill me. But they're off by themselves, and they spend, like, half a chapter talking about nothing.
Yes. When
you could have summed it up by spending maybe 3 pages talking about, like, okay, we're separated from people, there's tension, we have to get it going, and instead there's just a bunch of them talking about nothing, and it made me realize, oh no, this just happens all the time. why use 5 words to state a point when 200 words will do? It seems to be how this series goes about a lot of different things. A lot of really unimportant points get over-explained in so many different ways. And really, it's just like, you don't need to tell me why people can do certain things. They've got superpowers. That's cool with me. Yeah. Or explain that, whatever. So that's kind of a thing. And I thought I might have had another point, but I've left it. So you can go ahead. Sorry.
So the other arc I want to talk about is I don't remember what Divine Design, I think it was called, the Divine Design arc. Essentially, the arc begins super innocuously. The main characters are trying to get their car untowed, and they're like, we're 10 cents short. So they go outside, and there's like a kid who's like, all right, I'll give you 10 cents if you get back my other cards. And eventually it ravels them into this whole fucking thing involving this card system called Divine Design. And I'm not entirely clear if it's intended to be a game. They're essentially like tarot cards. And the tarot cards seem to be specifically tailored to people in there. There's one called like the Master of the Evil Eye. There's one called the Lightning Lord. And then like the Master Strings, etc., etc. There's one essentially for these characters. And everyone's like, we got these cards, and they're like, we can't destroy them. There's almost like something intrinsically linked to our life force. And it leads into this group led by this character called Lucifer, who is using the cards to essentially try to create like a utopia. And the way he's doing it is he's like kind of misleading these children along and being like, you will be my archangels. You will lead me, essentially. And Bond, the characters, go to like fight against him. Bond encounters Lucifer, and Lucifer kicks the ever-loving shit out of him. Just like fucking donkey stomps him across an arena, like 7 chapters, just fucking mutilates him. And Bond's like defeated and barely escapes with his life. And they have to undergo a training arc where they run into like this fortune teller who has to explain the game to them. This is again where I'm not sure if it's a game because she constantly refers to it as a game, but there's nothing on the card except a picture in the text box, or like a title box, so I have no idea what the like.
That's how it is in the dub of Yu-Gi-Oh though. Yeah. So everyone knows what a card does just based on there being a little engram and then a giant image. Yeah, and it's like, oh no, this thing has like 5 sentences of effect text, but none of it's written here.
But they have to learn to like utilize this Divine Design game because they're like, that's the challenge. And to try to explain it is essentially Divine Design is like 1 part hockey from One Piece plus 1 part domain expansion from Jujutsu Kaisen. Like in this way, you literally enforce your will kind of in the area. And in this way, it's like if you don't have it, you just cannot compete with somebody else has it. It's not enough to be like, hey, these cards give these kids magical powers. Because again, people just have superpowers in this series. It's not like that big of a deal. But they're like, no, it's actually essentially like a 6th sense, 4th dimension kind of thing. Like it's so conceptual. You don't possibly get it. And the main characters have to train to use this. And the way they train is by stacking eggs and walking through traffic without hitting any cards. And finally, they achieve their master success. And the way they prove that they achieved their master success is they literally walk through the wall of a cafe and over a hole because they are no longer bound to the laws of reality. That is what Divine Design has actively done. They have transcended all of that. And then they just go and they just beat their opponents like through normal ass shit. They never use any of this again. And then as it's happening, Bond explains, he's like, was there even a wall there? Who even knows? And then at the end, they reveal there wasn't a wall there. But like, this super reality was very important, but the hole was there. So who really knows what the answer is? And then Bond finally runs into Lucifer again, and he punches his heart out in 1 blow and wins the fight. And you're like, what was the point of all this? We spent 6 fucking chapters having Kazuki fight his other fucking... He has so many goddamn friends from that stupid fucking tower who just keep showing up. We had to deal with all of that. But then, like, Bond's like, actually, I used the evil eye. You're not dead, and you actually had a sick daughter or something like that. So you're not actually a bad guy after all. And then he's like, yes, I'll no longer do this. And then, like, post-credit scene, he's in a hallway, and Akane shows up, and he's like, "Nah, I've killed you, I've stabbed you, and then you're dead." He doesn't do that because he's not that charismatic. He just walks up, he's just like, "You weren't that strong after all." And then it's like, what was the point of this? This arc makes no sense. Why bring up the concept of super reality if it's just not going to be used? And I know why they do it, because the entire end of this series is that, oh, they were all stuck in a simulation all along, and it's about escaping that. It's about free will. But you're like, you built up this concept so much, and it doesn't do anything. Why didn't you just say the cards give kids powers?
I feel like I've been too hard on Hunter x Hunter for its weird side arcs with mechanics explanations that don't show up after the arc. Because at least they're, like well thought out, and it's like, okay, there's an internal consistency and sense about these things. Yeah.
I will say that again, this is not the worst series you've read. Nope. It has bad points, as mentioned, and very clear. This should be like the main thing. This series has a lot of bad takes towards misogyny and a lot of bad jokes in general. Kazuki's whole thing is like, you look like a girl. So much so that like Bond tries to peep on them when they're in like a hot spring. And it's like, what? A dude? And like, there's a lot of bad jokes like that. There's like a dog fucking joke in like the first couple chapters. It's bad. But like, as far as just speaking narratively, I am impressed by some of the things that it does, because it does try to tie things together narratively. And some of the time I'm like, if I was 13 again and I didn't have much experience with a lot of manga again, I'd probably be impressed with some of these things, because it is better written than I think some of its other contemporaries. But it's just so overwritten that to get to those points, like, it is... I think this is a satisfying series to just read the cliff notes on, and you're just like, sure, absolutely. You don't have to sit there through 30 chapters of like, you have to fight Himiko's mirror version of herself before it comes into reality, and she becomes the voodoo child and all this stuff. You're just like, I get it. They need to escape the simulation. What is truly freedom, etc., etc. We don't need to be this over the top about it. I don't need this to run for 39 volumes when like 20 would have been enough. Probably even too much there.
Probably a bit too much. Yeah. Yeah, I've got nothing more to add. I'm going to forget entirely about this series probably within 2 months. When we consider our worst series, I don't even know if this will make my top 3 worst series, because I just don't have strong enough feelings about it. So
I would agree. I think this I don't know if it makes my worst series of the year. It makes maybe my most frustrating series of the year, but maybe it still does. I don't remember how many bad series I'd say were bad we've read this year. Love Stage was last year. I can't just use that again, right?
Right.
Just every year, just really ram in on Credo Prime's recommendation.
Well, we could like have different variations of it. Credo Prime represents Love Stage. Yeah. Just have it be. Oh no, we could cover it again this year.
We could, yeah. But I will say that it is still. I guess this is what
there's a sequel series for that, right?
I want to sum it up. I guess is this: if you like this series now, or you liked it at one point in time, I totally understand that. At one point in time, I enjoyed this series, even though I eventually got tired of it. So I totally understand that. But as I said, through the viewpoint of someone 25 years or whatever removed from that, not that long, but like 20 years removed from that point, this series does not hold up particularly well. It is not that good of a series, unfortunately.
And that's okay.
Yeah, some stuff doesn't age well.
All right, guys, we got a lot of manga to talk about for weekly stuff. Yeah, so what?
I dropped my glasses, Nick. I'll be back in a second. God damn it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll just start things off. So we're gonna start off by talking about My Hero Academia.
Oh, you Nicholas!
What have you done with Quinn?
It's Spooktober, meaning the most spooktacular time of the year is upon us.
God damn it. Couldn't even get it.
It's time for Spooktober! No, carry on!
I've got too much manga to talk about to focus on this, okay?
Carry on, do as you need to.
Alright, I gotta talk about My Hero Academia.
I shall be off on the side just having commentary. What should I say? Comment boo Terry. I thought there was a boo in there when I started.
It's not. You could have said common terror. Like, come on. Like, do I have to do everything?
Let's go back. My commentary.
No. You had a chance.
Okay.
You missed. You had your chance and you missed it. All right. My Hero Academia, chapter number 368. Rev up, one for all. I thought that revs looked like hay for a second. Anyway.
Oh, Nick, shouldn't we talk about the cover page?
Hagakure is fucking naked and visible on it, and there are just like bands that are basically acting as sensor ribbons across her naughty bits. And yeah, so this is the thing that happened. She's 16. Moving on. All right. Deku last time showed up to fight Shigaraki. He now questions Shigaraki, asking if the kid is still in there or if they've completely been taken over by All For One's personality. All For One Shigaraki is like, no one by that name exists. The two have achieved a perfect melding. And is all, I'm evil and I'm the one in charge of this body. Bah, ha, 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 ha. And then Mirio's like, I don't know. When I made that rude accusation before, he acted like he was suddenly possessed by someone else. And he started raging and freaking out like a child. Also, he laughed when I showed him my whole butt. So maybe there is an immature kid in there somewhere. So, yeah. But the recommendation is, oh, well, the more that we fought, the more unstable he got.
Yes.
Nana Shimura is one of the different vessels that is watching proceedings from Deku's point of view. She looks at one of the faces that is manifested in Shigaraki's giant hand finger things. And I think that's supposed to be her son, maybe? I'm not sure. Anyway, but they're like, yeah, he's still in there. So they start to fight. Shigaraki charges forward, and there is a Hisams effect. It's smash, but it goes the other way. So it's Hisams! And Deku's like, I'm gonna beat you, and he combines several quirks together in order to create a black chain thing that smashes into Shigaraki and smashes him across the ground. And one of the One For All vessels is like, we're gonna win. It's very, very necessary that he said something. Deku uses the transmission quirk so that he does cool punch things to Shigaraki, and everyone's like, what the hell is going on? And they say, oh, this is a meta ability that changes a target's speed when touched. So basically he can punch Shigaraki multiple times without sending him flying because he's slowing him down between punches while he also stays fast. Yes. So he punches him good.
Very good.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, we're going to win. And Deku hits a Detroit Smash.
You know, it's an exciting thing of like, cool, we're like building up. Deku's doing his next big attack, you know, all that sort of stuff. And I'd say because we're in this, I'm excited for it. I don't know if it's going to necessarily function as well as I'd like. I think there might be some issues as this develops, but as it is right now, I came away like, okay, this is kind of cool.
There were some cool punchy bits in this, and I could actually follow the action for the most part for once.
There you go.
Good. Yeah. All right.
Shall
we talk about Undead Unluck then?
Yes, let's talk about Undead Unluck. Number 129, Sacred Spirit Treasures. Spirits are kind of scary, Nick. That's like the spirit of Halloween.
Spooky spirit treasures.
Spooky spirit treasures. And Undead's already in the name. So this is the spookiest series of weekly manga recap. I'm giving it my stamp right now called Chunk. So we're back in the flashback of Victor, who's just basically like, why does this bitch like me? Like, it's really kind of what his thought process is. He's like, I don't get it. I suck, and she fucking loves me. There's also like a growing fan theory that Juez might be trans because like when we see the character here, they don't have much of a chest and like a kind of short masculine haircut. I don't know if I 100% buy it, but I absolutely see where people are going with that, and I do think that's like a fun head canon. So essentially,
wouldn't be the only trans character in the series, so.
So we have this moment of essentially Victor kind of right before last chapter ended being like, hey, look, shit's happened. You did all that stuff and it barely lasted like a couple minutes. Like you're not doing so hot. And some people think she was just around before gender was introduced. That could also be a thing. And they're just like, hey, look, Sun is just 2 steps away from destroying Ark. Tag me in. Let me be here at this point, like right by her side, tending to her all the way up until the end. Like, it's what she's wanted. This death will set her free, and I want to help her until she takes her final breath. And in exchange, in the next loop, you won't see me again. I'm never going to come out. So I just need to know what these feelings are that Juez gave me. And he's like, okay, come right back after you're done, because waiting 4.6 billion years is my job.
Oh man, can you imagine like striking that deal with someone's like, okay, but I get to wait around for 4.6 billion years doing nothing.
Yeah.
All right, you talked me into it.
Fair enough, I suppose. Have me over the barrel. So the two of them are working together, Victor and Juez, and they're like, we're going to use the sacred spirit treasures. And we see a whole bunch of rocks are headed towards them. And Victor is using his attacks, and he's dodging it. And then there's like a giant beam cannon from the face of the sun, who's just like, pshoo! And it looks like it eviscerates him. Like, it's just this gigantic explosion. We don't really see anything. And then we just see Luna is like, superb. They would have been wiped out without that. A superior artifacts weapon of my own creation capable of killing Sun. Aegis, one of the 3 sacred spirit treasures. And,
see, it's okay if you do the whole that, if you immediately on the next page explain what that is. That's okay.
We've also had this like revealed to us before. I can't remember if this is the one that we saw under.
I think it is.
But yeah, I think it might be. And they're like, hey, if you hadn't continued to clear quests to preserve until like 2020, you wouldn't have located that treasure. Like, I guess it does mean something that you did all this work to this point. And I love Fuko's face during all this, because Fuko's like, why are you finding this interesting, you weird fuck?
Yeah, it's all just a game to them.
Yeah. And then Juez activates their weapon, the Fouerbois saber. I don't know how to pronounce that exactly, but it is a fucking sword of mouths and black energy. It's really fucking metal. It's called Rebellion. It literally has mouths and eyes and hands writhing off of it. And Luna's just like, oh, this is awesome. 2 spirit treasures will be taken on God. This is great. Juez is like, why are you using this? This sword belongs to you. And he's like, no, I've put all my effort into you doing this. This is you. The sword is fueled by vengeance. And Luna is explaining, like, Juez has never once lost heart nor quelled her rage for even a moment. So Juez, injustice is worthy of wielding it. Imbue the sword with all the hatred you've had over these 99 loops. And Juez basically says it like, I will imbue this with the bitter regrets of all of my comrades who have died. All of my anger and all of my rage are coming at you. These last 455.4 billion years are coming at you, God.
My love, my anger, and all of my sorrow.
It's pretty metal. It's actually pretty metal.
Fucking insane. Yeah, this is a great chapter. I love just how big everything feels. Like there's a ton of like page-and-a-half spreads all throughout this, and they all feel like really big moments. And then, yeah, like one of the most effective parts of it, as you mentioned, is just Fuko just reacting to Luna, just being like, "Oh man, this is fun. This is great. Like my friends are gonna die. What the fuck is wrong with you?" But without saying anything, because it's far more effective to just show her expression as she grimaces and stares in disbelief at this thing. So yeah, good stuff.
Very good stuff.
Okay, so Kaiju number 8. It's chapter 71.
Don't you mean Kaiju number 8?
Yeah, I do. Yep.
Ooh.
Captain Nabumi there has showed up on the scene.
You didn't give me the opportunity to interrupt you.
No, we don't have time. Has showed up on the scene to clean stuff up while after Dwayne was attacked by Kaiju. He starts to say stuff, but one of the other agents, who is conveniently wearing a full gas mask, so we don't ever have to know what their face looks like, escorts him away, and he's like, "But you should go back up Captain Narumi." And they're like, "Oh no. We need to evacuate because he's fully equipped with Kaiju weapon number 1. He's essentially a Daikaiju in human form. He is basically the most dangerous life form in the area at this moment. So we need to go." And we get to see Narumi briefly in action as it seems as though he basically like bullet times all the Kaiju around him and immediately blows them up with huge explosive bullets. He then gets a status report from Hasegawa because he can handle his share of this, but there are so many Kaiju attacking all over the ward that they need backup. But there's a problem because everywhere in Tokyo is being attacked all at once, which we of course already knew, but we get to see that in greater detail and see different divisions and different captains addressing their various issues in a quick little collage. And Narumi quickly concludes, like, yeah, someone is pulling the strings here. Someone coordinate all these attacks. And then we get this big full-page spread of Kaiju number 9 moving a chess piece as he says, number 9 is making its move. Except number 9 is moving the king, which is not generally an offensive maneuver.
Bad piece to move, yeah. He's putting it real out there.
So he doesn't seem to know what he's doing in order to...
He's like, I watched the Queen's Gambit. You moved the big piece to the forward, and then they lose.
Although, one has to wonder, since this is Narumi making this comparison, presumably, is it number 9 that doesn't know how to play chess, or is it Narumi?
He has no idea.
No, it's not a video game. So we get a bit more reporting of a bit about different stuff. See some of the huge Kaiju, including this dinosaur-looking one with a weird face that's just going full-on grimacing. So Hasegawa says, yeah, there's an overwhelming number of them. We can't request backup from any other division, so what do we do? And Narumi just says, we kick their asses ourselves. This is what we've been preparing for. Fair enough. And he tells Hasegawa to deploy you-know-what. And we cut to a nearby base where Kaiju weapon number 4 is being launched via a dedicated electromagnetic catapult device.
Gotta launch some Power Rangers like shit. We gotta fucking catapult it into the battlefield.
It is very giant mech kind of feeling. And Hikaru is fully equipped with the number 4 weapon. She's got her frickin' axe with her as well. And she gets in this, like, Darling in the Franxx looking, like, motorcycle thing in order to be launched forward. And she just, thinks to herself as she's getting set, like, I'm going to be filling my mother's shoes. And she swears that she's going to be worthy of the weapon that she's wearing. And she asks for help from her dead parents to lend her strength. And she says that she's heading out. We get this big 2-page spread of her determined expression. And it's very cool.
Nice. How do you like Kikoru's design?
I don't like the suit on her. I liked her old suit better.
Did I get the right name?
Kikoru is the girl, yes.
But Nick, don't you mean Kikoru? Gore. Kigoru.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't like the design either, honestly. I don't know. There's something about it I wish I liked. For some reason, it's like, I don't know. I wish like the chest was a little bit more symmetrical.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
Or less symmetrical. I don't know. There's something with it.
Yeah, it's a little bit too plain. And I think that the fact that it's almost all one color isn't helping too. So. We got a short chapter of Spy Family. Very short. There is a very nice, 2-page spread to just kind of mark the beginning of autumn. Also, the second half of the first season of the anime. Anya is struggling with history. So Lloyd hatches a scheme because he knows that she's been doing better with, math because of stuff, examples that from her, Bondman cartoon. But he realizes but there's nothing in the spy cartoons that has to do with history. But what if I were to craft original stories for Bondman that dealt with it? And so he goes and just makes cartoons.
My man
with Frankie.
animates an entire cartoon so that he could teach his daughter. And you're like, that's almost cute if you know he isn't doing it because he's like, look, our country loses this war if we don't do this.
So he goes and does it, and then we get to see little bits of the cartoon that he's made where Bondman stops in the middle of the action to just very obviously say, which way is north? I know, a compass needle always points north. It's just really basic shit. And then, time goes by, Anya's watching it, and then she just looks over her shoulder and says, this cartoon sucks. And that's it.
It is a great image, and I hope everybody has saved it for reaction images when they need to. This image has a lot of legs to it, staying power. It can run a lot, I think. So
it's very exploitable, absolutely. Yeah. So it's a great short chapter of this series, I would say. It builds up to one joke and it's a good punchline. So. Yes. Quinn, have you had a good time talking about Eden Zero while I was gone, by the way?
I did, but before
I know we got to do World Trigger, but yes. I just want to ask you first. Did you have fun talking about the Eden Zero while I was gone? No.
Yeah, well, we have such a fun chapter to talk about this week, so you can't ever spare it.
World Trigger.
But don't you mean Gold Trigger?
Okay.
See, the Spookmaster still got it.
Yeah, you do. Sure. It's the away mission test part 23. We've been here. We're going to have been here for 4 different calendar years very soon, I think.
Yeah.
God. All right.
So there's 2 things that are going to happen, Nick. That are fully inevitable. One is the heat death of our universe. That is an inevitability that's going to come. And the second is one day we're going to get to the away mission. It's not today, but one day we're actually going to get there.
So last time, the amazing plan that people hatched in order to get Katori out of her funk was promising to introduce her to Scruffy Hottie, and it worked.
Yes.
And she's very intent on this as they're eating dinner, and she says, "All right, we need to iron out details. This is not letting this go." But she clarifies, okay, what's my goal here? What am I going to have to do? What are the conditions? Do I just have to earn a certain number of points? Do I just have to do my best? Do I have to reach a certain rank? Actually, she is specifically told, you could just try your best. She's like, no. I need to. I wasn't slacking out before. I need a tangible goal. So, Sua says, Mikumo's got to make it onto the away mission. That's your goal. We can't really do anything to influence Kyosuke, so this is between you guys. So Katori doesn't look very happy about this, and she kind of grimaces and struggles with it for a minute. She's like, all right, you're serious about going on this mission? And Osama's like, yes. And she says, then you better keep your freaking promise. It's the most serious Katori's been about anything. And then we have to go and check on other squads, and immediately I lose interest in almost all of this.
Yeah, this part was super cool, and then it's just like 7 squads. You're like, I don't give a shit about any of you. Except I kind of care about Ninomiya's squad, and I guess like a small part of me cares about the squad that Yuma is on. And we just keep jumping between them, and it's like, oh, man, fuck. I keep forgetting there's like 12 of you fucking squads.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, it's a good thing that, like, Osamu's squad has these, like, little subplots going on where they're, like, hatching schemes that they've got to keep Katori's interest and stuff, because you get around to all these others and it's like, it's just the same story repeated multiple times. Like, well, we got to try and do something in order to get a leg up on the competition. We got to do something in order to handle the special assignment and score better. Taichi's hat is still stupid. And that's basically it. There is a little bit where Ninomiya is kind of like practicing carrot and stick between the 2 kids on his team, where he's hard on Yuzuru because that's his motivation for him. And then with Chika, he's like, hey, you performed better than you did yesterday, so keep it up. And she's like, oh, okay. And it's like, yay, you use different approaches for different people if they have different results. That's good.
Aww. Good for that.
And there is a brief moment between Yuma and Urushima where he says, hey, what were you texting about earlier? Were you giving your squad mate advice? And Urushima says, nah, nothing like that. Why do you care? And he was like, he's not even trying to lie. And he can detect lies. So,
yep.
So there's that. They again go over like, we got to win more battles and stuff. And Yuma says that he has an idea for what they can do against Mizukami and Ninomiya that are far and above everyone in battle sim stuff. And we go over to Suwa Squad again, and they're like, what do we do? And they start to realize like, okay, we got to figure something out in terms of like skills. Katori presses the point of like, look, Four Eyes is like our bait. Everyone just makes beeline for him, and then when he falls, then we kind of get overwhelmed by the numbers and the disadvantage that way. We can use him as bait, but he gets taken down so easily that he's not even acting as proper bait. So they think about like, okay, well, could we like defend him better? What should we do? Osamu says, I've got a few ideas that I've been mulling over, but we're lacking in data. And they're like, okay, but we've got all the data from our battles. And Osamu says, well, yeah, I think we should ask around the other squads and get data from them to supplement the data we're gathering in our battles. And so they start to make some calls. The first person that they call is Kodera. Suwa calls him, and they go over that. And Kodera's like, I mean, I'm ahead of your squad, so why should I make this deal with you? And Suwa says, oh, so you're not trying to, compete to be the number 1 squad? You stand to benefit from this too, and you're not currently at the top of the standings, so you should work with us if you care about winning it all. And Kodera's like, all right, fine, I'll talk to you. And the chapter ends with Osamu instead taking over the conversation with Kodera. So we're going to find out what information he needs, presumably next chapter.
Yeah, I feel like this is like the 3rd time in the away mission like setup that we've had a chapter that kind of ends with Osamu being like, I think I might know what we need to do. And like, he always does come up with something, but like, you're still kind of waiting for like that big moment where Osamu does something like truly crazy and awesome, and we just kind of haven't really gotten one yet. So I don't know if that's going to be this, or this is just going to be another one of those moments where he's like, hey, turns out we all have different data, or something like that, something along those lines.
Quinn, we had to wait like 7 years for Osamu to get his one battle sim victory thing, so we might be waiting here a while.
We could be absolutely waiting here for a while. But in the meantime, Nick, let's talk about a truly revolutionary chapter of Eden Zero. This is Eden Zero, chapter 210, The True Enemy, or the Boo Enemy. I don't have the hand nearby to do the lights, but, you get it. So, yep. Ziggy has been returned to the personality he was before. The bad Ziggy has been suppressed. And he just says, Ziggy is asleep for now. This is our only chance. Kill me. And Ziggy's like, Grandpa? Ziggy's like, yeah, I know you have a lot of questions, but I don't have time to answer them. Ziggy's going to wake up. So before that happens, you have to. And Shiki interrupts him. It's just like, wait, is it actually you? And it's like, yeah, I've blocked the other Master Ziggy that was controlling him. I believe that this is most likely the personality that you knew as Master Ziggy.
Names get confusing in this chapter, yeah. I should indicate.
Yes.
Because they don't really do anything to distinguish between evil Ziggy and good guy Grandpa Ziggy.
Yes. I guess I should just say Grandpa Ziggy when we're talking about the quote-unquote good one. So
yeah, that'd be easier. Yeah.
Yeah, so Shiki's very confused. He's like, wait, you told me, like, that guy just told me you came from the future to save the human race. Like, how did, like, what happened? Like, I don't understand. And Grandpa Ziggy's like, well, it isn't exactly another personality that you've met. I had been to, and we'd suddenly get, like, a brand new explanation of stuff. I was taken over. I had all my memories sort of erased. I don't remember anything before coming 20,000 years into the future. 20,000 years from now, I set out on Eden Zero and left the planet Eden on a quest to find Universe Zero, but then the unthinkable happened. My ship ran into the chronophage, and I came out the other end, and I knew nothing. I landed on this planet in Universe 1. I had none of my memories. My ship was exploding, and I guess the explosions made a sound like a ringing bell, which is why I named the planet Grand Bell, after the sound of the ship exploding. You're like, sure, whatever, man. And he's like, yeah, there was no information, but I built a entire functioning economy essentially by myself of like
populous theme park.
Yeah, I built like a populace of people, of robots who all had their own like unique personalities and shit like that. I was essentially God to all of them. I just want to be very clear about that. But one day, someone, like a guest to the theme park, mentioned Mother, so I was like, oh shit, gotta go do that. So I set out to go find Mother and retrieve my memories. But before I got there, I found you, Shiki. And Shiki's like, where did you find me? And Grandpa Ziggy's like, I can't tell you that. And Shiki's really angry. He's like, why not? Why can't you tell me where I'm from? And he's like,
because it's not time for that plot reveal yet.
Exactly. That is exactly what happened. Just the same way the last piece of detail that we had like a week or two ago, where it's like, hey, this is almost a piece of information we're about to be revealed. Like, no, not quite yet. Grandpa Ziggy's like, you'll know when the time comes, but now you know the rest of the story. I died, and that should have been it. But my body was taken over, and I came back to life. And my body was, all my memories from my life as Shiki that, I claim to be 20,000 years in the future. Those were things that were told to me. I don't remember them. Those memories are completely gone.
So all the stuff that we saw before in a flashback was not a flashback. It was a flashback of, this is what I was told was my backstory.
Kind of. Okay. Kind of. Like, it's more than that. Because, like, not Grandpa Ziggy believes it. And we're not entirely certain, like, when they're like, that's another personality. Or, like, someone control. We'll get into it. Yeah. He's like, look, the one thing I do remember is that the time I spent with you was truly precious and important to me. And I still think of you as my grandson. And Pino's like, hey, who was it that took over you? And Grandpa Ziggy's like, the real enemy, the true evil that you must fight. And it's here on Lendard as we speak. And we cut, like, it's like a group shot of, like, every fucking character involved in this arc, including Lobelia, who's done nothing. So I guess it's important to put her in there. And, like...
Also including Rebecca's mother, who is, comatose. So,
and I had so much trouble. I was like, who is the woman on the bottom of the second page? And I was like, oh, it's Holy. Because I thought the person next to it was Holy. And then I remembered the hero was really bad at drawing distinct character designs. I'm like, no, that's Feather. Holy is the one in the bed. Very, very dumb. Shiki is, of course, like, who is this enemy? And Grandpa Ziggy's like, the real enemy's name is... Bro, can't say it, bro. It's like the scene in fucking Kingdom Hearts 2 where all the characters have to be like, let's go get her. What? Somebody has stolen the word, and they just keep doing it. You're just like, this is so fucking stupid to watch a character be like, I can't say the name. I've done everything up until this point.
Can't you, like, tell us, like, what they do, what they look like? I can't say the name!
Yeah, could you write it down on a piece of paper real quick? Like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. Ooh, do you have paper on you?
He gets all poetic and stuff when he could just be like, the one with the swords, like anything like that.
Yeah, could have just shouted the name out like way before this instead of everything else. But like, of course, he's like, look, I'm about to power down. Like, I'm gonna go to my lowest level. You use your attack and you kill me. And Shiki's like, wait, why would I do that? Like, if there's a real enemy, then you don't have to. And he's like, no, you don't understand. If you don't do this, I'm just going to become a pawn again. Like, please put me out of my misery, Shiki. And we see Grandpa Ziggy is like crying at this point. Cut over to the Eden Zero. Connor is sitting outside the medical room while Rebecca's mom gets worked on. Hermit's there and is like, holy shit, this is a lot. Like, this is so much fucking nonsense. Ziggy was taken over by someone. He can't tell us the secret of Shiki's birth. What does this have to do? Why were the shining stars all erased? What is Pino? What is this? And then there's like, wait, there's one thing I still don't get. Oh, it can't be true. Then this means the true enemy is... And then we cut back down to Lendard, where we see a bunch of bodies. We start with just one shot from like kind of far away. And then we see a couple of Urza's crewmates. And then what I believe is Jesse from...
I believe that is.
From fucking... Because it's the gun, too. And some other kind of band. I don't know if it was like an ether, restraining band or something like that. I can't tell. And then the person standing over them is Elsie? Whoa. Hold on. Wait a moment, Nick. Are you saying Elsie is the real bad guy all along? Almost certainly not. This is almost certainly
definitely not. There is no fucking way, Elsie.
Almost certainly she's being controlled or just stumbled upon it. But yeah, that is the situation here. This was a dumb revelation that truly encapsulates that this series is being written in the moment and not like in an extended time frame, because this doesn't.
No.
Like, I know it kind of adds up with a couple of the details we've known, but it doesn't really seem to tie. Like, why did we get, like, it's just paced so poorly that you're like, this can't possibly be the way you want to execute this story. You can't possibly have been like, here's the big revelation. Here's like some fucking weird, stupid 3-chapter detour about Dead End Crow. And then here's the real story. Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Also, if Jesse is dead, that is the greatest conclusion to a story ever.
Absolutely.
That they showed up, killed that fucking loser, got it all blamed on Hamura, and then before any conclusion to that narrative could happen, he gets killed. It's like when a D&D game happens and you accidentally kill like a quest important NPC and the DM's just like, I guess that storyline's over.
If you had to choose a character, like, say from this collage that we get of all the cast members, or, just like an established Eden Zero character to be the true enemy behind it all, who would you choose?
If it had to be a character on that list, I would assume it's probably somebody like Eraser or some shit like that. Like, I don't know. Like, here's the thing. This is unfortunately like a tried and true hero concept. Like, of his 3 major series, this is now the 3rd time he's like done a fake out where we think there's one villain and it's actually someone else is the big villain all along. Rave Master, we thought it was King, and it turns out it's actually King's son is the real bad guy. Fairy Tail, we thought it was Zareth, and it actually turns out that Acnologia was the big villain. This series, we think it's going to be Ziggy, and it's like, no, there's actually another antagonist that is like the big bad guy all along. And people have been like kind of theorizing it for a bit just because Hero's predictable, unfortunately. If you made me pick a character here, I'd be like, it's either going to be like Eraser or Saint Fire Nox, but like they're not actually the bad guy. It's like an evil personality inside them or some dumb shit like that.
If I had to choose an established character, I would go with Valkyrie. Just like, it's like, no, they were never actually dead. They've been orchestrating this the whole time and stuff.
That'd be kind of metal. I don't think they'd ever do it because it wouldn't make a ton of sense. But like, that's
why I would just go with like, it's just like something that'd be impactful, and also hopefully like that means that Homura does something as a result of that. All right, we've got 2 chapters of Akane-banashi to talk about.
Well, Nick, we only need to talk about one chapter really. This one. We can just flash forward to the last one. Stuff happened. Boom. Now we're at this one. See, I recapped it for you.
there were a bunch of characters that got introduced.
Yeah, but Nick, don't you? Actually, I don't have one for this one, so carry on.
Okay, fine. Yeah, a bunch of characters get introduced as like very important Rakugo people.
But Nick, don't you mean Rockbugo?
Yes.
Wait, hold on.
It's very spooky. It's very spooky how you very obviously lean over and turn the lights on and off. Akane asks for assistance from Kyoji in order so that she can like, hey, I realized I'm lacking, so I need to like, learn to like play instruments and dance and stuff. And Kyoji actually gets kind of like embarrassed about it because the other two like predicted this would happen. But he actually takes her aside. Is like, oh yeah, here's how here's how you play the taiko drum. And it's like, I've played this arcade game before. I know how you do this. You have to just make sure that you hit the rim and you don't hit it too hard because then you break it. And everyone always breaks the taiko drums because they get too over-enthusiastic. You don't need to hit it as hard as you can. You just need to tap it rhythmically. Come on, guys.
I wanted to play the game too, you assholes.
Yeah. Anyway, so that all happens. A whole bunch of stuff is getting said as well about Akane because of that Twitter video. They got you around, got a lot of attention. She went semi-viral and got a lot of attention. And we get a flashback from Kyoji's perspective where he talks to I think it's another Rakugoka who says like, oh yeah, people are wondering if Isho was actually just using this event so he could get a second Kaisei Arakawa. And maybe all that built-up negative emotion towards Master Isho is going to get directed at Akane, who's just an easier target. Because you can't really go after Isho Arakawa because he's so prominent, but you could go after just this newcomer girl who's young. But Kyoji is watching his little sister apprentice and is just like, yeah, I think that she can handle it. And we get a time skip via drum beat as Akane keeps on hitting the taiko drum until with one last beat, it's suddenly 8 months later. And she is going to see, she has apparently met up with Kureishi. And it's like, what's going on? What's happening? Well, it's next chapter. So they are there in order to begin proper Zenza training for Akane. Kureishi has already begun his Zenza training. And we see that Akane is going to start her training. She's like doing like cleaning up stuff as, the new apprentice in the group. We get a reestablishment of like, hey, here's how you get promoted to Futatsume. And they established that like, oh yeah, Kaisei reached it in just 2 years. So Akane is like, I gotta catch up and I gotta go fast. And Shigema gave her the contact in order to get in as a trainee because Kureishi is a new Zenza there as well. And Akane remembers Kureishi as Karashi Noodlemeyer because that's how she remembers the name Nerimaya. I'm sure it must be some other pun in Japanese, but that's a very interesting way that gets carried over. Uh-huh. Kureishi, however, has gotten taken on as an apprentice by the spooky-looking mustache guy.
Did someone say spooky?
He's got no pupils. Look how spooky he is.
He's just kind of old,
Yeah, okay.
He's a little spooky, but not that spooky. I guess he's kind of Undertaker-like.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Undertaker with that mustache?
I mean, is it a better ensemble to the rest, like from the nose down? Would you take that or the Sarah neck tattoo, which she had for quite a long time as the undead wizard zombie? He's like, who loves my wife?
I love my wife, the one before Michelle.
My ex, she ruled.
Karashi starts to mock Akane because he's been a Zenza apprentice for 2 months, and she's only just started And he's like, I'm your senpai in every way, so address me with respect. And instead, Akane is just kind of relieved, and she makes this very cartoonish expression. I'm not sure entirely how to describe it. But she's like, oh, I'm glad that I know someone here. It's nice that there's a familiar face. And so she just doesn't really care that Karashi's trying to big time her or anything. They're within one of the places in Tokyo where there's a lot of rakugo that gets performed at these places called Joseki entertainment halls, and they are in particular going to the Yasakate performance hall, this very, very cool looking place. And Akane is taken aback when they approach it because it looks like it's from a different time period with the old style roof, talismans and stuff over the wall, over the entrance. And as they head inside, Karashi says, my master said to me that all the giants and greats of the past developed their skills on this stage, that this place is packed with the blood, sweat, and tears of Rakugoka. And Akane is in awe as she beholds the stage, which is a very nice shot. It's nice to just have that feeling be shared with the protagonist. Akane starts to settle in and deposit her stuff backstage, but when she goes to put her stuff behind the kimono rack, she comes across the biggest jump scare this week, probably. I don't know. I don't think that there's a creepier moment, personally, that happens. There is another Zenza here called Kenpute. He is the most senior Zenza, the Tate Zenza. So he kind of looks after everyone. And there's also a very punky Zenza guy named Asagao. And Akane greets him and she bows to him respectfully. And Asagao says, oh yeah, I know you. You caused that big stir last summer. You're that girl Yisho's trying to promote, right? But he says, look, you're not going to get any special treatment when you join your Zenza like everyone else, and I make the rules here. So stay in line and know your place. He's fun.
What a jerk. I hate him. I hope he gets hit by a car. That might be extreme.
That seems a little bit.
I hope he gets his foot run over by a bike. But like a small one, yeah. See? There we go. It's all about mediation.
Not necessarily a rickshaw, just maybe he'll have training wheels on it still.
Yeah, could be a child's bike. Still gonna hurt.
So it's Akane moving into the next stage for training. There's a lot of just stuff being established in these chapters.
Yes,
so.
It's good though. I like it.
Aliens area.
Botnik! Don't you meet aliens scarier?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's got aliens in the title, so I don't know why we need another one, but okay.
Scarier.
So, chapter number 16. Too many cooks spoil the broth. It's kind of backstory for Tatsumi about how he got the substance implant thing when he was a bit younger. And I was like, I don't want to go to your house, Grandpa. And they're like, all right, well then babysit your little kids and stuff. And Tatsumi's like, why do we have to move, Dad? And his dad's like, I'll tell you why. You thought if you moved, you could escape. All quitters think like that. I heard these two helped aliens escape from the branch. Oh man, his parents were alien sympathizers, and they got murdered to fuck because of it.
Murdered to fuck.
With fire, yes. The people who killed them were very, very, very inefficient. They break Tatsumi's mom's leg so she can't escape the fire. But then they're just like, we're just going to leave now instead of killing these people. We're just going to leave and let the fire do its work and hope that none of them escape or anything. Yep. So, A3 kills parents. One of the director guys in the group is like, who cares, though? And they say well, you see, A3 is doing the implants. They capture and torture Mumerians and make the substances. At first, the aliens were involved in the operation, but A3's members couldn't trust them with that for very long. And Tatsumi's like, yeah, and my parents left because they learned about that, and they helped the Mumerians escape. And then they came and told me the truth. They put the substance implant into me in hopes that I would adapt to it and save me, as I nearly choked to death from fire. Yeah, so instead of, like, moving Tatsumi's body before operating on him, they were just like, no, we'll just do it right here. Seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
Also, there's a very horror manga panel, like, just, like, stuff being shoved up his mouth and stuff drilled into his brain and stuff. It's crazy. So like, well, why do they want to make substance implants? They're like, because they want to kill aliens, basically. that's what it boils down to. So like, all right, well, we got to get some votes though. There's a kind of slimy looking guy who asks a question of Shiraku, which is like, hey, did you question the Shogo and Tatsunami guys separately? And Shiraku's like, yes, I did. Well, they agree separately, so that sounds reliable, so okay. So like, all right, now there's 5 people for and 4 people against, and there's 1 neutral vote. So that's all we gotta do. And then they go over to Kato, and he's like, if I support this, then that makes it a majority. And he starts to say something, but then one of the other directors just pounds the table and goes, people are hurting, but you're afraid of the risk. Better to face that risk and handle it. And then Kiyotaro stands up and says, I vote yes, because Izumi is correct, and I was too weak. And Izumi also accepts the proposal. And one other guy's like, oh, I accept it too. So... and then one of the really reluctant guys is like, oh, okay, but if A3 is behind the implants, are they behind yours, Shiraku? And Shiraku's like, I mean, I was implanted as a baby and Foreign Affairs 5 raised me, so I don't see how that's a problem. And then the guy's like, I'm too old for this, and that's right. So they get the vote. Chapter number 17, the summons. Let's review the plan one last time for the audience's benefit. There's a Has-Dome. What's a Has-Dome? It's a hide-and-seek system. Whatever that means. So Satsumi's team will arrest the big shots and stuff. And one of them's like, well, but Kato wants to know if a certain delivery is going smoothly. Just say what it is. And Kato is the leader of Team 10 in this case. He's got intelligence and stuff. And there's a hummingbird that communicates with them, and a mouse. They're using aminals as communication devices. And when there's a person who is doing stuff while implants are happening, it's weird. It's hard to tell what's going on. And they're splitting up in order to do stuff, and going down an elevator, and they go into a room that looks like it's outside when it's really deep underground. And Shiraku explains to Tatsumi that it's tech for subterranean aliens that makes them feel like they're outside. But now that they're down here, their devices don't work. What's happening? Well, all their other tech works, like their phones and stuff, so it's some sort of jamming device specifically for their tech. And a guy shoots a gun at them. Oh my gosh. What's going to happen? Oh, he's got a special device that jams their devices called Nirvana. And they just kind of like hide around the corner of the elevator that they came down, and Shiraku says, yeah, A3 wiped out Team 5, and the main culprit used this kind of equipment to disable their equipment. And that makes him Kiyotora's mortal enemy.
Whoa. Dude, Nick, this guy's like a super big, like, counter to this guy I don't care about.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Who's not here right now.
Dude, Nick, this new guy counters this dude I don't know. This is fucking wild. Dude, Aliens area is popping off.
This guy's got ears on a string, and he's like, I'm the Foreign Affairs 5 killer. That's what they call me. And Truck is like, I'll go confront him anyway. And they're like, but you don't have any devices and stuff. And Truck says, do you think I'm defenseless? And the guy says, your equipment won't work here. And Truck says, never underestimate the benefits of desk work involving tons of documentation, which is the least cool badass boast I've ever heard. He goes to shoot Shiraku, but the bullet gets sliced in half. Oh my god, it's the universe's top assassin from Tatsumi and Shiraku's first mission together. The guy who seemed definitely like he would be an anti-hero ally is now an anti-hero ally. Who could have seen this coming?
I can't remember if we said that at the time. We were like, this dude's going to come back. And because, yeah, it does feel like something that was very obvious. This is so wild and dumb. I can't, like, this motherfucker just shows up. Like, here's the thing. I don't know if this is supposed to be like a twist. Like, oh, Shiraku expected this. Like, because the way you read this chapter, Shiraku's like, never underestimate the benefits of desk work involving tons of documentation. Section 5 killer is like, I don't understand what you mean. Fires the gun. Bullet gets cut in half. Assassin guy shows up. So what does Shiraku's boast do to this? Did he use his documentation to hire him? Like, why is this guy here is the question. It is a very, like, it feels like something like, I feel like I missed a line or something, like something to explain. Cause like, was he that close with him before this happened? Like that he was just like, let me call my buddy, the #1 assassin. Like, let me just do that. He's like my friend. Like, I know we fought each other, but like now we're
bonded.
Like, yeah. Like now I got to talking with him. Turns out he likes a lot of the same things I like. We listen to a lot of the same music, to be completely honest, which I think is pretty cool and really good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important to be able to bond with someone because like having an interest is one thing, but being able to share that interest with someone else is very important though.
Yeah.
Sometimes I talk with people about stuff that they don't like, but they like to listen to me talk about it and vice versa. And that makes us both appreciate it more. Blue Box, Chapter 70.
Don't you mean Boo Box, Nick?
I mean, yeah, I guess. Chapter number 70.
This one out of the way. Remember, the Spookmaster General's powers get stronger.
Stronger. Yes. It's chapter number 70, an exciting event. Chinatsu is watering the cactus that I had to be told was a metaphor for her feelings for Taiki because sometimes I'm not that smart. But these two chapters actually lead into each other quite well because we get set up that there's going to be an autumn training camp. Wouldn't you know it, the clubs for badminton and basketball and rhythmic gymnastics are all going on the same trip. Ayame is the one who gets this
very specifically those three. I mean, which
specifically.
It does make sense in that those do seem to be the only 3 sports at the school that they ever talk about. So they're probably the only 3 that are actually good. So I guess it does make sense that way.
There's like a flag football club at the school as well, but they don't have nearly as much of a budget. So they're like, yeah, our school trip is just to like, I don't know, go to the alley behind the school.
We're gonna do a practice in a Wendy's parking lot. That's our field trip.
Can we get Frosties after? No,
absolutely not. That is not in the budget.
Do you know how many of you there are? There's like 3 of you. I'm not going to buy 3.
I'll be honest. Even if you kids shared like 7 kids to a Frosty, we still can't afford it. Like, you don't understand. We've spent a lot of money on gambling, and we just keep picking against you. It's very weird. You're the best teams in our school, but we're like, I mean, they're due. Like, they're due to fuck up.
So Ayame sees this as a huge opportunity because she's like, oh, hey, it's going to be a big group sleepover, essentially. So that means that I can get Chinatsu together with that upperclassman hottie, and I can help play matchmaker for Yonota and Hina. So she's like, yeah, that's right. I'm going to be totally awesome for people. But as she's kind of walking around with that thought in her head, she comes across Taiki, who is practicing at badminton, and she talks to his name is said later. I'll pick it up later. The shaved head captain guy, and she's like, hey, is he actually like good at this game? And he says, I mean, he might be one of the best on the team. He's probably the best first year that we've got, and he did beat Yusa last time too, which is new. So I asked,
like, what the fuck?
Know about this? And she's like, well, maybe he was wearing weights on his arms and legs when he know to beat him. Stands too hard. But she's starting to notice that, hey, Taiki's kind of good at this sports thing. Oh, this won't cause complications in the future at all. No. But she grabs Taiki's attention while he's kind of busy thinking about badminton stuff. He specifically thinks about like, oh, Hyaru's not like he's not playing me at badminton. I want senpai to notice me and help me get better at badminton stuff. But he gets grabbed and taken off to go and get some shuttlecocks, which both Hina and Shinatsu react to. Oh, that boy's going off somewhere with that girl. Nagisa puts a basketball in front of her face and it's like, this is your new face, which is... Oh, wait, that's not Nagisa. Sorry. I just assumed it was because they were being friendly with Shinatsu. And Matsuoka's personality had not really been established previously prior to this. This is what he does. He is like, yeah, you're a totally spacey airhead. And they're joking around and stuff. Yep. Ayame goes around with Taiki. She just keeps on talking about, like, I wish Yusa were here so I could dote on him. Jesus. You're not a good manager. She's like, I wish that I could sabotage my team. But what gets established is because she just like will casually talk to people as they're going down the hall, and she says hi to two different guys, and Taiki's like, "Oh, you're kind of popular," and she says, "Yeah, those are my exes." Like, what, both of them? Yeah, I dated that guy, and then later I dated that guy. And Taiki says, "It must be nice to be in love so often." And Ayame says, "It's not really about being in love all the time. When somebody tells you they like you, why not go out with them?" I mean, I do turn down people who really are my type, which is hypocritical of her. And then Taiki's like, okay, well, if you're saying that, then what about you and Yusa? And she just like, these are two separate things. Listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. But she says, hey, why wouldn't I be grateful if someone said that they liked me? I mean, maybe I wouldn't like them at first, but maybe I would change my mind after we start going out, so why not give it a shot? And she's like, haha, planting the seed. I'm going to make him go out with Hina. That's great. But, and Taiki, it says, like, it's true. Someone saying that they like you definitely gets you thinking about them, which makes Ayama think, like, oh, maybe he's way further along than I thought he was. You got it, Hina. You got it, girl. So... she makes a lot of great expressions in this chapter as well, I should say.
Yes.
Big, goofy, fanged expressions.
She is a very charismatic character at this point.
We catch up with the basketball club a bit, and we get a freaking school love match legend. This would not be a romantic comedy series without it. It's in particular a bonfire legend. If two people ask each other out in front of the bonfire, their love will erupt into a blaze and they'll live happily ever after. Chinatsu seems to think about this. Then we get to chapter 71. Joint training camp, which opens with Ayame getting freaked out by a spider.
Yes. That's also kind of spooky for Halloween,
Yeah. Spider! Oh!
I love our cover page, which introduces all our favorite characters. We go from right to left. It's Ayame, Chinatsu, Nagisa, a character I don't know, and I don't know why they're there, and then others.
Well, yeah, it's Hina's friend. Like, yeah. I don't remember her name.
I was like, I feel like I've seen that character, and maybe they've said their name, but I barely acknowledge Nagisa in this, and she's had actual, like, scenes.
And Kyo.
Kyo.
He's got no reason to be at the training camp. We got to get that in. Yeah. So, chapter 71, we get just kind of some scenes of just like the most sports stuff that we've gotten since Taiki's match with Yusa. Basically, just like hard training, running early in the morning, doing high knees and burpees and stuff in the gym until the entire badminton team is collapsed and exhausted. And they're like, oh my god, and it's so boiling hot in here, and Taiki like crawls over to the door to push it open so that they get a little bit of a breeze. And they see the basketball team jogging by, and Taiki spots Chinatsu seemingly chatting it up with Matsuoka, having a good time. Ooh. And then the freaking rhythmic gymnastics team just rides by on a bus. They're like, yeah, they practice at a gym that's too far away to run to, so they get to ride in a bus, which makes them kind of jealous. So More practice. Taiki is doing his badminton-y stuff, and then he goes over to Haru and he's like, "Hey, can you partner up with me? I want to check if I've got this one move down." And Haru just says, "No way," and walks away. No explanation given.
Fuck that.
So Taiki's kind of like taken aback by this, and he's like, "I mean, look, Haru's the best player on the team, and I want to compete against him so that I can get better. What's going on?" Then the team takes a bath. And as they come out of it, Nishida just has a moment of like, "Oh, that hit the spot." Everyone's like, "You sound like an old man." It's like, don't hate. Taking a bath does feel good. Fuck off. And then he says, "Listen," because the girls are going by to go and take a bath. "A respectable man may think that girls look great fresh out of the bath, but he'd never say it out loud." And it's just, Taiki's just, I mean, you did just say that. You just said that. And it's like, all right, good for you, Taiki. Calling that out. And then he says, "Now everyone's going to get to see Chinatsu-senpai coming out of the bath." It's like, all right, lost all respect for you immediately.
It is.
You had it.
It's one of those things where, like, I try not to be too hard. He is a kid. He has very weird thoughts to work through, but it is one of those ones you're like, no, everyone gets to see what Chinatsu looks like coming out of the bath. To be clear, it's not like they all get to see her body as she comes. Like, no, she's out of the bath. She's dressed. She has a towel around her. She's just fresh from the bath. He's like, everyone's seen that precious moment of her now. And you're like, all right, man, calm down, dude.
Stop being weird. Hina comes by with... and...
That's just their name, right?
They just had, exchange some brief words. Like, Taiki makes note of the fact that her hair's down because she's just, dried it. And they just note, like, we haven't really seen a lot of each other because we were practicing in different gyms and stuff. And Taiki's like, "Yeah, God, we practice so much. I'm just going to go straight to bed and be ready for tomorrow." And Nishida is immediately like, "No, the night has just begun. It's a sleepover, so let's live it up. And I brought a game." And Ayame like bursts out of her room like, "Game, got it, yeah, I'm joining this. I've just been running you like a slave driver the whole day, but yeah, I'm playing a game with you now." And Haru is like, "Why are you doing this in my room?" It's just no fun. But it's the king game that they're going to be playing, which is just hey, someone is the king, and then they get to tell someone else what to do based on numbers and stuff. But in this case, they don't get to actually make up the commands. It is given to them in card version. So it's less, I'm going to make people kiss each other, and more, the cards prompt us to do random stuff.
Yes.
So Nishida immediately gets flicked incredibly hard.
It's so funny. Just like, oh, get flicked. And it's like a fucking bomb went off. Oh my god, best moment of the chapter.
Haru is cruel. He's no mercy. Kyo is there? All right. And he talks like
I think he is a member of the badminton team. He's just not good, right? I shouldn't say he's not good. He's just average.
He's just kind of there. Yeah. And everyone's kind of like, I mean, that was a terrible thing. There is a moment there. Chinatsu gets one, and it's like, oh, well, you got to get your hair done. And immediately, Hina and Nagisa and Ayame all descend on her and just do like random, unrelated things with hair ties and stuff. And she gets like 3 different kinds of braids and looks very silly. Mm-hmm. There's a cute moment where she kind of leans over and it's like, "It's embarrassing. It was just me." And she puts a single hair clip in Nagisa's hair. It's cute.
Yes.
But Ayame is like, "But there is something that no one else has realized. A surefire way to come out on top in the game. The follower card has a small nick on it. So knowing that is as good as ruling the game." And it's like, oh, it's Taiki's turn. And Ayame's like, "During the last turn, I happened to see the upcoming command, which was to gaze into the eyes of the person on your left. That should be what Inota has to do. And by sharing an intense gaze with Hina, Inota will fall head over heels for her. I can manipulate this game." And Nishida, in the middle of the game, is like, "Let's give the cards a good shuffle." It's the 4th card that they're on, and now he's shuffling them.
Like it's so random. It's like only for the sake of this joke does that, like, someone would never do this in a card game. Be like, unless they were like, oh wait, these are the exact same order the last time I played it or something like that, maybe. But yeah, it's amazing.
But Taiki does end up with a juicy card, which is to shout your feelings to the one you love. And everyone's like, oh, now we're getting into it. This is juicy stuff. What's going to happen? And Taiki is left to think about Chinatsu and Hina in this moment and ponder over, like, oh, the one I love.
Yes.
And that's the chapter.
Ooh, killer tofu. Good stuff.
It's a good pair of chapters.
Yeah, I like them. It's, you know, we're setting up some stuff. All right, Nick. So we didn't end this last time. We wanted to give you the opportunity to weigh in on whether or not you want to keep this around.
Ginka and Luna. I mean,
Ginka and Glüna? We don't actually have to recap it. We can literally just give our thoughts on the first 3 chapters.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. I really liked the 3rd chapter. By the way, I like this. I forget her name, but the Beretta. That's it. The girl who gets introduced, and I like that. You know, we've got this shy, unconfident girl to go along with her very, very confident leads, and she actually sticks around too because she shows up in the next chapter as well. I still feel like this series is going to end in like 10 weeks or something like that. So I'm fine with continuing to read it. I would like to continue doing that.
You would like to continue to read it, because I was gonna say let's skip it, because it as you said, I don't think it's gonna last particularly long, and I'd rather wait to see if it's going to before making that call, since we already have a couple of things. But we can do it. We can add to the recap and keep talking about it. I'm not gonna use. I
may regret it, but. I may regret it, but I say, yeah, let's do it, and then I'll just feel worse when we have to say goodbye to it. Sure, why not?
Cool. I mean, Aliens area is going to be gone any day now.
That is true. It'll cut it back down.
All right.
Yeah, so good stuff. That's our Ginka and Luna recap, where we barely talked about
Glüna! Remember, Ginka and Glüna! Fuck, you get it.
Quinn, I have a special puzzle for you.
Ooh, I'm excited about this one.
So we didn't talk about last week's chapter last week. We got to cover this back to back, which means I have a double length riddle for you.
Oh my god, it's 12?
It's 12 P's. All right, here we go. While portly, he was part of the progression. Then he partook in planets. Then he presented from a playhouse. His other persona dealt pain and palliation. It's a word I had to pick up for this one. Does he now have a pale pelt?
This is Bray Wyatt.
Super Bray Wyatt.
Otherwise known as The Fiend. Otherwise known as Husky Harris. Otherwise
That's right.
As Mike Rotunda.
Also, possibly something else, but we might find out about that this weekend. Yeah. We'll see.
I was like, well, let's see. Nick has a couple of things he could do. He could easily do either Andrade or Sammy Guevara, because those are big names going on right now.
Yeah, but let's go for the one that's like more fun.
Yeah. Nick, I have a game for you as well. I mentioned doing this before. We're going to test this. This is called Nick and Quinn Waste a Minute of Your Time.
Cool.
I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute.
Okay.
And I have a wrestler picked out. You need to guess who this wrestler is using only yes or no questions.
Okay.
Once the timer runs out, you get one more guess.
Okay, so it's just a 20 questions kind of thing, basically.
Yes, but you have only a minute to do it. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start it now.
Are they an active wrestler?
No.
Are they a male?
Yes.
Were they in WCW? Primarily.
No.
Okay. Were they a WWF?
Yes.
Okay. Were they prominently active in the 80s?
No.
90s?
No.
2000s?
Yeah. Yes. 2000. Yes.
Mostly 2000s, maybe not. Were they WWF champion?
Yes.
Okay.
They were world champion.
Were they an Intercontinental champion?
Yes.
Were they European champion?
Yes.
Is it Kurt Angle?
It's Kurt Angle. You got it with 15 seconds left. Good job. We didn't even waste a full minute of your time. See?
Well, knowing you, I was like, hang on.
I wanted to start off easy. It'll get harder from here as we start trying to come up with less well-known wrestlers. So
all right. So once we get to Kazarni, then we'll really be cooking.
I'll have to look up info. Where the fuck was Kazarni from?
I don't know. All right, let's cover PPP, Chapter 50, Simple State. So we get to see some images of like the different experiences that people are having, and in response to Sora Chica's playing. There's like an image of like a Buddha. There is two Mimins embracing Maloli. Let's not read into that too much. But and of course we have Lucky. And also there's Fanta looking at Fanta, it seems like. But then the images fade as Sora Chica finishes playing, and everyone is just in stunned silence before applauding, almost as if they didn't actually enjoy it because they're just staring blankly because it was so overwhelming. Lucky collapses and just thinks to himself, Sora Chica's performance is right, and that brilliant Lucky is right. And as he says right, the piano eye takes over half of him. It's starting to come forward and take over his body. But then he also says to himself, but if what I saw was right, then why do I feel sad? Why me sad?
Why me sad?
Sadame asks Lucky what he saw, and that gets explained like off panel. Sora Chica has to tell the MC that the performance is over so that he'll continue on with things. Everyone is just so stunned by everything that has happened. Sadame starts to kind of interpret all the stuff that Lucky saw, and there is a very in-depth explanation that he gives about like, oh, like piano playing doesn't like, technically contribute to humanity's advancement as directly as like medicine and science and stuff like that. And there's no core requirement for it and curriculums and stuff, but there are geniuses with it and all that. But putting that aside, something you mentioned that you aren't really focusing a lot on, you said you saw the brilliant Lucky in funeral garb, right? So if he was wearing that, maybe deep down you believe that the brilliant Lucky should be dead. And if Sora Chica Otagami's performance is right, when it comes to what you feel is right, you should take everything you saw and felt to correctly understand it. Try putting it into words in simple terms. And Lucky is left to, think about that. And he's like, what do I do? I want to like, am I here for someone else? Am I here for myself? I want to believe my own ego. And Sadame says, well, why? Because I need to see it through. Why? Well, because kindness is just a horrible version of ego. They have this honestly like very philosophical discussion about these points and what this means psychologically and stuff. But Sadame presses the point of like, look, remember this. The bad thing about kindness is that it has a chance of becoming a nuisance. And also, what does being the best mean to you? Human beings live for only a short time, so I believe you should treasure what's most important. The most important thing is real, and that's the ego, which you should protect with everything you have. And Lucky's like, so multiple egos exist? Yes, they do. This is something that Freud didn't get into.
Ooh.
But he, hey, like, he says, ego is a word that expresses your opinions and will and actions, and words tend to group things together. And Lucky thinks about what the funeral Lucky had told him, which was the body always chooses you. So he says, I want to be kind to my siblings, and I want them to live happily. And Sadame seems almost surprised by this. He's like, oh, that's what's most important to you? Well, then you need to protect that with everything you've got. And you've got to pay attention to the bad things. Whether you're evolving or reborn, move toward the ego most important to you. I like this way the best. It's the most effective. Sora Chica just like loomed up over them while this was happening because, of course, Sadame is directly off stage, and we don't really know how much of this conversation Sora Chica was overhearing while Sadame was going on about like. So this is what Sora Chica's song meant, by the way. Chapter 51 is titled Da 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 Dum, which I thought might have been deliberate, but no, it is in fact a reference to Beethoven's Fifth, which features in this chapter.
We also need to establish, because it's been mentioned several times to us, and I think people will be angry if we don't, that this is sort of a shortened retelling of the one shot that explains Sadame that was Mappo number 3 or Apollo. Yeah, Apollo 3's previous little work. So you can find that if you want to see an extended version of this, but this character who a lot of us were just like, who is this character? He just randomly showed up or whatever. This is what most people saw, an expanded version of this.
Yep. We get a... Yep, that's me, Sadame Hino. How did I get here, you may ask? Well, let me tell you. And what follows is essentially Sadame didn't want to follow an academic life like his father was pressuring him into. He wanted him to become a doctor, and Sadame was like, I don't want to just do what you want to do. But when he tried to be sincere and explain that to his father, he just got smacked across the face. So instead, he decided to deliberately fail his high school entrance exams. Can't become a doctor if you can't go to high school. He got kicked out of his home as a result of that. What a good family. Yay. And over time, he just kind of went from job to job to make ends meet. And he happened to come across Maloli when she was playing at an electronics store, and she was playing Beethoven's Fifth, and it shook him to his core. And so he decided that there was something he liked about the way she played, and he tried to copy it, and he couldn't really do it, but it was fun to try, and it really took him because he was like, oh yeah, this kind of makes me mad that I can't perfectly replicate this. Because the reason he was so good at school before deliberately failing the entrance exams was just memorization. Hey, there's a little bit of an academic experience criticism there. That's not like you're learning anything, you're just memorizing the right answers. And he says, studying was never really fun for me because I was just born with a talent for it. But he was approached by the director, who was told to try and copy Maloli, and he couldn't really do all of it, but there was some part of it that he could do. He still can't match the distortion, of course, that Maloli can do. But he says, I can do one note like her after she's been helping to tutor me and stuff.
That's a big fart sound.
Yep, that's right. And then that was how he ended up at that vacation home that he had when he was first introduced in this series, was the director just gave him the place to stay. But there was a catch for him to have all that provided for him, which was he had to copy the Otogami sextuplets perfectly. And there's this awesome 2-page spread of the 6 of them in split panels. It's very cool looking. And now he's scoring off against Sorachika, an empty god, and Sadame's most difficult challenge. And now they're looking at each other, and Sadame says, yeah, the brilliant Lucky was wearing funeral garb, so that Lucky's death state is the truth for Lucky, and that's it. And Sorachika looks over at Lucky, and he looks sad, and he says, funeral garb. I see. And leaves. Lucky wants to go after him, but Sadame gets his attention and is like, hey, what do you want to do about this? Remember the 4-on-4 contest that's been going on while this has been happening? Do you still want to follow the plan? That prioritizes winning. If you want to change it... And so Lucky goes to talk to Fanta. And as Sadame is getting introduced, Lucky goes to his brother, and Fanta is taken aback when he's like, what, you just want to take it easy? That really pisses me off. But Lucky says, look, I don't want to fight because I don't think the piano is something you should use to fight. It's not like that. It's a tool to make you all happy.
I agree. It feels like saying that, though, really means the series may not have long left because a lot of the premise of this series is about dueling people with pianos. So the notion...
It made it to a year of publication. It's longer than I thought it was going to get.
Oh, so. Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting development. We'll see where this goes. It is curious. I guess this chapter also is to give us a bit more context to the Sanamune, who I give an astounding thumbs tip slightly sideways, sometimes twitching upwards too. I don't care particularly much for this character, but yeah, I like him enough now.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, Nick.
He is okay.
Let's talk about Mashle, chapter 126, Lemon Irvine and the Tattooed Tamer.
That's right. It's a lemon chapter. Holy shit.
So, like, a long time ago, Lemon was left in charge of watching MASH along with Tiny Chithead Dude. And someone was breaking in. And we finally follow up on that as the person is there. They're holding a chain and they have Cerberus behind them. Ah! And this person's like, hand over MASH or face my pet's fangs. Get him. Dozer, Bulgar, burn. And Lemon's just like, oh my god, we have to keep MASH safe no matter what, Ocho. Who's the little annoying dude, and the little annoying dude immediately just like, here you go, a housewarming gift from me to the bad guy. So he switched sides immediately. Lemon's getting attacked. She's like, no, please, I don't want to die. She's dodging, thankfully. But Tattoo Guy's like, fuck you. Like, what are you doing, dog? This is your job. And he pulls at their leash and like slams them to the ground. And Lemon's like, wait, what the fuck? What kind of person does that? And she uses her magic to break the chain. She is basically like binding magic. So she's like, there you go. Your chains are gone. And then she starts like petting him. She's like, who's three good boys? Who's three good boys? And it's like, that ferocious Cerberus monster has transformed into a friendly pupper. The dog's like, ooh.
Just completely different art style.
Yeah. Again, a joke Austin was not here for. He only comes for the serious chapters. So next time there's a super serious chapter, Mashle, I'll have to invite him back on. Lemon explains, she's like, look, you need to approach animals with love. That's how you build a strong bond. And Tattoo Guy's like, fuck you. I don't care about that. Tries to swing his chain at the dogs, and she basically like bends it so it won't. And he's just like, fine.
And also, I think it also attaches back to his wrist as manacles with her binding magic. So.
Yes. So I think actually what she might just do is handcuff him, and that's what stops it. But yeah.
Oh yeah, so he can't swing as well.
Yeah. And then Lemon's like reveals the name she's renamed their dog of Spotty, 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 and Spottington, which are great names. And she's just like, look, you guys are free now. You don't have to worry about any of that. I'll handle the rest here. You guys don't worry about it. And they all immediately gather behind her because they're like, yeah. And Tattoo Guy's like, you dare turn against me? And tiny little annoying dude's like, now's our chance to turn this around. And I just like Lemon's face. She's like, fucking serious. Cerberus goes to attack Tattooed Guy. And immediately he activates a magic and just shreds them with these like needles essentially. And just drops them. It's kind of sad because it's like a gruesome scene, and then it cuts to like Lemon and Ocho's face, and they're just like cartoonish. It's like, oh, this almost needed a more serious thing because it's kind of harsh seeing this dog just get spiked like that.
She does like worry over them for a little bit, which is nice, but yeah, it does kind of undercut the moment for them just to be like, oh shit.
Yeah. So, but yeah, she is very worried. There's another joke about Ochoa being like, damn, I've switched sides again too soon. And he's like, look, I'm just going to kill you. Time to put me on MASH. And Lemon stands between them. And he's just like, step aside. I'm going to kill you. And Lemon's just like, I'm not moving. And he fucking clocks her across the face, just like, not even open-handed, just fist smacks her across the room. And he's like, don't ever do that again. And then she like grabs onto his leg. And she's like, you can't order me around. He kicks her in the stomach. And he's like, fine. No more interruptions now. I'm going to kill MASH Burn Dead at last. Activates his magic. Spikes go out. Lemon stands in the way with her hands kind of there taking up all the spikes. And they pierce through it and into her. And he's just like, excuse me. He's just like, why are you doing this? And she says, even though it nearly cost him the exam, MASH saved me. He's kind to a fault. And that's what drew me to him. Not someone who mistreats their pets could ever understand this. You know, sacrificing my hands right now is the least I can do to protect this person that I care this much about. Tattoo guy's like, all right, fine. Well, if you're that determined, you can die together. And he's like summoning this big spike ball. And Lemon's just like, I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to keep him safe no matter what. And the tattooed guy's arm chops off. Just poof, gone. Just sliced clean off. And he's just like, huh? What? And we just hear a voice say, a wise man once said, there is no sincerer love than the love of food. And as a lover of sweets, I can't help but agree. However, her love is equally deserving of celebration. And Nick, who should it be but Kaiju Glüna, the 4th or 5th most popular character in this series, so they're an important one, who has shown up to intervene.
Where the fuck has this Lemon been this entire goddamn series? Like, this was great.
Yeah.
Just this very sincere moment where she's doing everything she can to protect Mash, and her love for him is not just some like, I love him. It's like, no, she goes over like, this is why I care about him so much, is because he was so kind to me. This is what she's willing to do in order to protect him when no one else is there to help. Against someone that far outclasses her, and we see some of the stuff that she brings to the table as well. You know, some of the uses of her magical abilities, and also just like, you know, her own just like personality, not being used as a punchline, but like, no, she gets a freaking Cerberus on her side just by being herself and being nice to this dog that's being abused by its master. It's all very, very good stuff.
Yes.
And I would have loved to have this happen like 5 more times through the series up to this point, instead of it only just happening now.
I'm glad we got something, I suppose. Like, there is definitely a part of me that could have like seen this have all happen, like the series run back, and like we didn't really get much of a scene for Lemon aside from like, oh, she protected Mash while I was recovering, but we never really cut back to that or whatever. Like, established that something happens there and she had to protect him is nice. I'm not like super excited Kaiju Glüna is there to save the day. But it's like, all right, fine. Something for him to do when we've kind of established what the other characters are going to be doing right now. Like, it's fine.
Yep. All right. So, the Elusive Samurai, Chapter 79, Slapdash 1335, and also we'll talk about Chapter 80, and they do kind of go together pretty well. Again, the whole thing, like you mentioned that the guy with the girl on his breastplate looked a lot like the other guy, and now we get a scene that establishes his relationship with Tadayoshi, where he was encouraged to follow this path because it was good for Ashikaga, and they're dressed almost the exact same. They've got the same ear, the same hair, the same face. It's like, what is going on? These are not related characters.
Are these not different? I don't understand.
What is happening? Ayako is fighting him, and she is getting pushed back. Some of the random foot soldiers get in the way and help out. And Ayako says, you know, like, hey, you know, look, I'm big and rough and unruly like my father is. I'm not really the ideal woman for my lord, but he accepts me anyway. So my dedication to him is absolute. And she comes in and is going to kick his ass with a spear. And the soldier, you know, admires that she's got this wild fighting style. And this powerful will, and he's like, and I'm going to take all that and put it in my made-up waifu, because that's what I do. And we also get some more of the bits of the fight between the other people. Shizuku and the Shrine Maidens attack sexual harassment samurai guy, and back up Ayako's father while doing so. Ayako's father, his weapons keep on getting chopped up, so he decides to use the corpses of fallen soldiers as weapons instead, in an interesting strategic move that seems to be perfectly effective. Okay. And then we get over to Tokiyuki, who is dodging slashes, while Kojiro just kind of waits for an opening and doesn't engage at all. And Shibukawa is getting more and more angry as Tokiyuki continues to mock him, and also Genba interferes in the fight by throwing rocks and stuff, until Shibukawa just lashes out with this massive whirlwind attack with his huge-ass sword. And he's attacking even faster. Tokiyuki gets nicked with a small wound. And we also cut over to Uno very briefly, but he's like, Shibukawa is very strong, but he's still young. Because, and this is important because Shibukawa is starting to get tired. He's gotten so angry that he has been holding back and he's just been going all out. And now he's kind of exhausted. He's hit his stamina limit. And now Kojiro's like, all right, now I'm going to kill this guy. Thanks for wearing him down for me. And Tokiyuki not only steps back, he actually kneels down to just let Kojiro get the last blow in. And then we start off chapter 80, Ideals, 1335, with just kind of by the way, this will be our strategy. And that's basically what they say they're going to do. And although Shibukawa is still super strong, Kojiro is able to block blows better because he's much more tired. Yeah, they're like, oh man, this was their plan the whole time. And we get more of the fight with Ayako's father and the guy. Sorry. Okay. There's just wild stuff happening with corpses being smashed into each other in order to attack this guy. And he's like, I better get serious, otherwise I won't be able to sexually do things to women more. It's bad. And then finally we cut over to Ayako's fight, and they go for the waifu guy, Ishido. And Ayako does the sickest sunset flip powerbomb off of the guy's horse that I have ever seen. Up by the waistband and then down into the fucking ground shoulder first into a pinning combo. And everyone pins him down together. And there are immediately 4 guys who follow up with her, pinning each of his limbs down while Ayako holds a sword to his neck and she demands that he surrender. And he says, no, do it. You fight rough anymore and there won't be anything left of you. And Ayako says, who cares? I do this for my lord. So, in his last moments, he's like, I have admired your unyielding struggle, but that was my downfall. Tsuruko will be jealous of me. But, when you spoke of Shizuku, I sensed a romantic rivalry. It's like, this guy's so weird.
It's such a dopey, little section of this story, too.
Anyway, he says all that. Ayako gets kind of embarrassed.
It's like this weird moment.
And then she cuts his head off.
Well, she doesn't cut his head off. He cuts his head off using her sword.
Yeah, he leans into the blade in order to do it. He's like, I was idolizing the ideal woman and pursuing the ideal martial arts in order to benefit Tadayoshi-sama so we could create an ideal world. And my entire life has been a struggle to reach the unreachable. Somehow, with his entire throat cut open, kitty, he keeps on talking, which is incredibly impressive. And then he dies while thinking about his waifu. And he goes to an afterlife where he gets to watch her dance, it seems like. And Ayako's reaction is, what a strong man. Not what a strange man, just what a strong man.
Yeah. That was Professor Peanuts. The Spookmaster General also has a cat. That's named Professor Peanuts. He does not get scarier as the year goes along because I've tried to put collars on him and he does not like it. But just understand his disposition gets worse as the year goes along. Gets spookier. As for this chapter, I like the sunset foot moment. It's super cool. Very tired of having to cut back to creepy, weird, I want all your women guy. That's super annoying. And I want that character to just die, not for cathartic reasons, but I'm tired of going there. I was going to say I liked so much this chapter, but I really disliked, I heard when you mentioned Suzuku, I sensed a romantic rivalry. I'm like, I don't think we need to boil these characters down to the fact that they both have crushes on fucking Tokiyuki. It feels very reductive.
Hey, can we focus on the part where we spent 3 pages where she jumped on your horse and then jumped off the back of your horse while grabbing your belt so that she could freaking power bomb you into the ground?
Yeah.
So, I sensed a romantic rivalry though.
Instead, it's these 2 women are failing the Bechdel test and one of them isn't even there. So it's all right, man. Fucking, I don't think
one achievement.
All right, Nick. Let's end this by talking about Black Clover, chapter 339.
But Quinn, don't you mean Bulak Grocer? I don't know.
That one was kind of okay. It was all right.
I'll workshop it. I'll workshop it.
Okay. I can't read it because I think it's Zetten. Page 339, Zetten. My mouse has also died. That's
the title does kind of blend into the black and white of that particular panel.
So we visit the healer guy that Asta had been told about before. His name is Fumuto Mikuriya. I'm not going to remember this character's name. He is now going to be Bubblefish Man. And Bubblefish Man,
incredibly plain looking, yes. I have to say. So,
and Bubblefish Man literally has these like bubble koi water spirits kind of floating around, and he's just like, "Yeah, I'm a recovery genius. I healed him. This is so great. I healed your devil as well." Like, there you go. And Asta and Sabretooth reunite, and they hug, and they have such a great time. I always forget the the lines it takes to get from Sabretooth to this character's original name, so it always catches me for surprise when I say it too, but I do remember it eventually. Asta tries the food. He's like, holy shit, this food's incredible. He's moment where he's smiling, and he just gets really sad. He's like, I really have to get back home. Like, this has to happen. And he's like, Ryu, please, what can I do to get back? And Ryu's like, look, I get it, but if you go back now, you're not going to beat Lucius. Like, it's just not going to happen. And Asta's like, I won't know until I try. Please, I have to save him. I couldn't do anything to protect her. Like, everybody's just in pain, essentially, right now. And Ryu's like, nah, it's fine. You've got time. And Asta starts getting anxious. I gotta be so sure. You want me to train? I've been training for as long as I remember. I can't get any stronger than this. And Yami's sister slaps him across the face. I've forgotten the character's name. We're going to call her Shmami right now. Shmami is like, I have no idea what's happening to you or the people around you, and I don't care if you die. You're only alive right now because these two people saved you. If you're a foreigner, like you, a foreigner, when we believe they bring disasters, like, you know, like, if you're going to ignore his orders and waste the life he saved, then I'm just going to kill you right now because there's no point in it. Don't take others' kindness for granted. And Asta is like, yes, you know what? I apologize. Thank you both for saving me. And Ryu's like, hey, look, that's like, he says the thing that I'm very glad he says. He's like, look, it's fine. We want to deal with Lucius too. Eventually, Lucius would be a problem for us. So we don't think he's going to stop at one continent.
It's a very pragmatic way of dealing with it, and I like this whole thing goes out because Ryu is trying to talk sense to Asta because he's like, "Look, we are trying to go with this. We're going to help you. You just need to stay here for right now. And when that doesn't work, then Ichika has to just be like, you shut the fuck up. I'll kill you.
Yeah, I'm going to cut your goddamn guts out and feed them to you." So we cut over, and she's it's the training time now. And Ryu's just like, yeah, this guy has overwhelming strength, you know, magic. Oh, he's talking about Lucius. He's like, this guy's got overwhelming physical strength, mana, and magic. If you take him on, he'll have your back against the wall in no time. You want to end the fight fast, and to do that, you need Zetten. And Asta thinks back to the thing he saw Chika do, which was like the multiple strikes at once and everything like that. And he's like, but I don't have any magic. And he's like, I wouldn't worry about that. Try focusing on her ki for right now. And he senses her ki, and he's like, yeah, everybody manipulates it unconsciously, turning it into your yoku. You do a super precise version of that, though, on purpose. Take the Yoroku inside yourself, and then make it erupt at once. And we see Ichika do it, as she slices, essentially, this thing of bamboo straight down the middle in a clean slice. And she says, you know, the amount of Yoroku and its speed generates explosive power. And then you should try it. And the medical guy, Bubblefish Man, is just like, that's not going to work, though. It takes way too long to do this. Like, people train forever and still, or train for years and still can't do it. You know, the only ones who can do it are you and the other Ryus in 7. And Asta's kind of just like focusing on this. And Ryu's like, you saw how she used the key, right? You have the devil. Anti-magic throws through you now. It's use that instead of Yoryoku and give it a shot. So Asta focuses, he starts transferring all of the anti-magic into him. He does his strike, and nothing really happens. Bullfish guy's like, yeah, I know, you can't really expect. And then cut over, the bamboo stalk is not just split in half, it's like disintegrating, like ripping straight down and like burning across. And everyone is shocked, except for Yuya, who's just like, yep, you rule, dude. All right, you already have a solid foundation. You just didn't know how it was done. So get out there and pick up more experience. And Asta just says thank you to Ichika, and he has a genuinely very grateful face as he says, I can still get stronger. And he seems very, very authentically happy about this. And Ichika's just like scowling as he's like, thanks in advance for all your help. She's just like, fuck you, you shithead.
Yeah, it was a good chapter. Like, I really like the way that this technique was illustrated, and it's cool because you see in a moment like, okay, here is how it works by default, and here is how it works for Asta. And it's just very concisely explained, like, this is why it works differently. You're not using magic, you're using anti-magic, but because of the experiences you already have, you can use these techniques, and here is the difference in how they manifest and stuff. I think we didn't really need Bubblefish Guy here for any of this other than just like, I healed your buddy, and then he could have just gone away. But other than that, a very good chapter, I think.
Yeah, I think this was a very, very good one. That's going to wrap up this very packed episode of Wake Up Manga Recap.
Yep, there is no One Piece this week, so we get to end basically just on time. Favorite series and MVP?
MVP for me is definitely Lemon. Like, that's an easy one for me. Favorite series is a little harder. I liked a lot of them. I guess I kind of want to give it to Black Clover. Not because I think Black Clover was necessarily the best chapter this week, but I want to give some credit to that moment of Asta thanking Ichika. There was like this very genuine emotion that was carried through the art that I found very, very cool and very, very appreciated. Like, Asta really does seem so thankful to finally have not hit a limit, that he was like, I can't beat this guy, and I've trained all this time. I'm never going to get stronger. Like, to see that there was an opportunity for him to still grow and how thankful he was, it was very sweet.
Yeah, this is the kind of reaction that you wanted to have in response to the characters hitting this major low point. I'm really glad that we got this set of chapters leading to this moment from Asta, where, yeah, he's not only experiencing his new environment, but he's also got this huge thing burdening him, and he's really worried that he's just going to fail because he can't get any stronger. It's the reaction that I wish one of the other Black Bulls had. Just one of them, instead of all of them being like, everything's gonna be okay. Yeah. But my MVP is also going to be Lemon, just because it was incredibly caught off guard and very pleased by the way things happened. I think my favorite series this week is going to be Undead Unluck, because it was just a bunch of really cool, huge moments that happened in a row, combined with some cool character stuff that was happening.
Yes, immensely so. The audience, by the way, picked Undead Unluck and Lemon. They matched you completely. So, Nick, the voice of the people this week.
Yep, up until all the Halloween stuff happens as we proceed further into the month. Guys,
but we're in the spooky season. Woo!
Thank you all for joining us for this long edition of Weekly Manga Recap. We record the show here on twitch.tv/RoloT Wednesday evenings, usually starting around 7 or 7:30 Eastern time. But to stay updated on exactly when the show goes live, you can follow us on Twitter, RoloT, Nick F. Time, and WMR Podcast. And you can also join the Weekly Manga Recast Discord server, which will send out an alert when we go live. And also, that server is a great place to just hang out if you like all the stuff that we talk about. We've got a wonderful community of fans who have bi-weekly game nights, participate in polls about favorite moments from the show and also from the series that we cover, that are coordinated by Ninja X3i. You can find those polls, as well as all sorts of helpful statistics associated with the show, by going to the Google Doc that he maintains. And you can also drop some recommendations for series as well there. We also want to thank Lyle Jack Stillitz was the trader for creating the opening sequence of Weekly Manga Recap, which you can see on the video versions of the recorded show on youtube.com/Weekly Manga Recap. We also get some title cards occasionally made by Steve Man, whose work you can check out on twitter.com/SteveManArt.
Yeah. This time it was Bond and Ginji kind of touching each other, which we didn't even talk about the fact that there's like a lot of Hoye interaction between them.
Well, I mean, like when there's, yeah, I mean, there's that when you have like, you know, actual like relationships built basically only between guy characters in a series, then that's gonna happen. Anyway, where was I? Oh, and we also want to thank everyone who supports us over on Weekly Manga Recap's Patreon, patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap, which you can check out for bonus content that we love to create for you guys. All right. So it is spooky Halloween month, the month of October, and we're getting started a little bit late as a result of natural disaster things interrupting when we were supposed to talk about GetBackers. But to get right back into it, we're going to be looking at a series called Hozuki Island. This is a manga that is created by the creator of, what is it called? Cradle of Monsters. That was it. So if we go back, way back into the beginning days of Weekly Manga Recap, this is the same creator of something we've already covered before. It's about children who get go to live on a deserted island somewhere, but there seems to be something mysterious going on among the adult teachers that they're keeping secret from the children. What could it be?
Interesting. All right, well, that's it. And remember, children, stay spooky.
Lean a little bit further over there.
Spooky. You'd think after like 5 years I'd get a lamp that was closer, but I don't.
Or like a yardstick that you could, you know.
Or just get like a digital thing. We're in the future, you know. That's the true terror of all this, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a simulation anyway, so.
Yeah, GetBackers proved it. Goodbye, everybody.